Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. So this video is about what if, at an early age, Naruto was appointed as an Anbu commander. I want to express my gratitude for your support and appreciation for the last video. One more request. Subscribe to the channel and press the notification bell to receive videos first. Without further ado, let's dive into the video. He is exhausted. He couldn't help but wonder when the day that promised to be the happiest of his life turned into the nightmare he was seeing at that moment. After giving birth to his beloved Kushina, he had felt the absolute joy of being the father of 3 beautiful children, 2 boys and a girl. The oldest of them was blonde-haired with blue eyes, a carbon copy of his father. They had named him Naruto, just as they promised. Jiraiya, the second Redeed and Purple Ajum, had called Sina in honor of the Shota and Yuzukage of the extinct Uzushiogakure. Nodo and Kushina's grandfather had called the youngest Redeed with eyes of an indefinite color, the Uzumaki myth, in honor of the wife of the righteous Shota Hokage. When he was preparing to reinforce the seal that contained the Kyuubi, a masked man had appeared who claimed to be Uchi Madara. The man had forced him to separate from his wife by kidnapping Naruto and throwing him into the air. Later, he had extracted the Kyuubi from Kushina and controlled it with his Sharingan to release it in Konoha, causing serious human and material damage in the village, being only expelled from the village thanks to the Sundaime Hokage at the same time that the Sarutobi stopped the Kyuubi. The Yondaime faced a masked man in a very close combat from which he emerged victorious. This brings us to the current moment in which the Yondaime was preparing to seal the Biju by performing the Shiki Fujin, ignoring the screams of his wife, imploring him not to do it. He finished the chain of hand seals and invoked the Shinigara. His hand said the terrifying Shinigara. "I need to seal the Kyuubi and my children," requested the Yondaime. "Do you know the cost?" "Yes," the Yondaime said with great determination and sadness. "How do you want me to seal it?" "I want you to seal the Yin chakra in him," he said. Pointing to Sina the Yang part in her, he pointed to Mito, and finally the soul in him pointed to Naruto. The Shinigami was going to perform the sealing when time stopped. A strange light illuminated the scene at that moment. "The Shinaman, you know what to do," the voice, and the light suddenly faded between 18 time returned to his being, and the Shinigara way he introduced part of Zoro's yin-yang chakra into Naruto. Once his work was finished, he went to Yondaime Hokage, "As much as I would like to take your putrid soul, I can't. The same Kami has forbidden. The insignificant and disgusting human, listen my words. One of your children will be responsible for deciding whether your disgusting village will persevere or will be devastated. Choose the child of the prophecy well. The future of the world depends on it." As soon as he finished his warning, he vanished. 20 The Namek was happy to remain alive and in power. Seeing his children grow up, he did not understand the impact of the Shingani's warning. In addition to the fact that the immediate arrival of the Anbus, Yan Shimura, distracted him from his thoughts, without thinking more about it, he left the place with his wife and 3 children. Chapter 2 Decision. It has been 6 years since the Kiri attack. We see a boy in training field number 7 in training. The boy was furiously hitting a tree at the end of the field. This boy was Naruto Namikaze Uzumaki, who was venting all the rage he felt in those moments in his training. Well, he remembered how his happy life with his family went to the flashback. A 4-year-old Naruto ran scared into the living room of his house. Terrified, he shouted, alerting his parents. "Naruto, Mom, Dad!" screamed scared Minato, and Kushina ran down worried. "Minato, Naruto, what happens?" Before the child answers, he saw his other 2 children wrapped in a reddish chakra, and with a psychopathic look, realizing the situation, he threw 2 of his 3-pointed kunai and then teleported to one of them. The man placed a chakra suppressing sea laws, then he did the same with Mito. After that, Minato gave a proud look at his wife, who was ecstatic with joy. "Kushina, I told you that they could use the power of the fleet at Tebe." Naruto was dismayed and fearful. "I didn't understand what was happening." "Naruto, Mom, what's happening?" "Kushina, now no." "Naruto, go up to your room." The boy left sad when he was going to go up the stairs. He winced in pain and started crying. His parents hadn't even realized he had the half of the sword destroyed by a blow that his brother gave him. With the Kyuubi's chakra and flashback from that day on, his parents began to spend much less time with him, since in their free time, they dedicated themselves to training their brothers. That's why he was very happy when a few months later he noticed how the same type of chakra that he had was emerging from his body. He had seen it in his brothers. However, his parents' reaction was one of fear, since, being the container of the Kyuubi soul, he should not be able to do that. In their immense ignorance, they did not realize that the Kyuubi soul was capable of creating new chakra, and they thought that the Biju was recovering its power. The decision they made was to isolate Naruto from his brothers so that the demon would not recover more of its power. Confining the boy to his room, they only let him go out 3 times a day, twice to go to the bathroom and 1 at breakfast time. However, Naruto went out the window every time he could to go train. The boy, immersed in his training, did not realize that he was being watched by 2 Angus. But they were not normal Anbus, they were from the special group led by Danzo Shimura and Sarutobi, and Ruin did not obey anyone else's orders. They were the elite of the Konoha elite. 8. The Anbu who wore the weasel mask stood up, revealing a boy with long hair and a ponytail and tear marks on his face. The face was the prodigy Uchiha, the demon of the Sharingan, an S-class ninja pride of the Uchiha clan, considered the most talented ninja of the clan since Madara Uchiha. The action was imitated by his companion with the crow mask, showing a young man with short hair. This was Shizuya Uchiha, the only one of his clan who was at the same level as Itachi in talent and power, known and feared in the ninja world as Shizu, and the one with the flickering body for his great mastery over jutsu. He addressed his friend and comrade Shisui, that is not the eldest son of the Kage Itachi. Yes, it seems that the son Daimei was right, the Uchiha said as always stoic. They continued observing the infernal training of the boy. He had placed some weights on his arms and legs and had jumped into the river tied with a rope. He went to the shore and tried to swim against the current. After half an hour he got out of the water to train his chakra control, trying to climb a tree with his feet alone. It was difficult for him, but after a few hours he had it reasonably mastered. He continued with his training routine now. He picked up a branch that he had adapted to look like a katana and began to perform kenjutsu tests. Shisui is very good. He has not had any teacher and by training on his own, he is already better than most genins and could even fight some chun. And Rusty the Uchiha was clearly surprised since Itachi had not seen any child with such potential. Itachi, now I understand why dances Sama and Rinam, they commissioned us to judge Sui, let's go. Itachi nodded before being able to go down. They heard Naruto's voice. Naruto, I know you're there, you've been there for a while looking at me. Itachi Shisui came down from the branch and positioned themselves in front of the blonde. He was surprised to see the two prodigies in front of him. Itachi Naruto Uzumaki. We have a proposal from Hyuzen Sama and Danzo Sama. Come with us to talk to them. The blonde just nodded. Shizu. And he stood next to him and took him away in a shunshin, reappearing in an office where the two commanders-in-chief of the special forces Anbu. Itachi, here is Naruto Uzumaki, mission accomplished. Danzo Sama, Danzo good. Itachi Shisui, the two Uchi can leave. They vanished into the air. Yusen, hello. Naruto gave a smile to the boy. Naruto Yusen Sama, Danzo Sama, why do you require my presence, he addressed. With respect to the two great shinobi legends in front of him. Danzo, I see that you are getting to the point. Well, summarizing, we offer you the possibility of enter Anbu route, said bluntly Yusen. We understand if you need time to. Was interrupted by the blonde. Naruto, I accept. I have always wanted to be strong to defend my village and route. I will be able to achieve it. Despised and separated by my family, I will be able to achieve my dream to be a shadow that protects the village from anonymity, said seriously. Naruto's answer pleased the elders, and they told him that his training would begin the morning after dawn. Naruto headed home after talking with the elders. He was excited by the idea of starting his training, although he did not externalize it. He was aware that a true shinobi must be able to control his emotions, since they are a double-edged sword. They can expose you to reaching a much higher level, or they can make you make mistakes that cost you and your comrades their lives. Absorbed in his thoughts about what he had experienced that day, he did not realize that he was arriving at his house, or, as he referred to it, the residence. Mikis jumped up onto a wall and then used chakra on his feet to reach the window of his room that was on the second floor. After entering, he lay down on his bed. He was about to fall asleep when he began to hear noises coming from the ground floor, more specifically from the living room. He opened his eyes and concentrated chakra in his ears to understand what was happening in the living room. When he heard someone being congratulated, he realized that today was his birthday, as were his brother's birthdays. Naruto shrugged his shoulders, not that he gave much importance to the subject. After all, he was always either locked up or training, and his family ignored him. When it was time to celebrate, he concentrated again on listening to what was happening at the party to hear Minato clears his throat and announces something. Minato, dear guests and leaders of our esteemed village, it is a pride for me and my wife to declare who will be our successors in the leadership of our respective clans. Silence fell in the room, everyone waited expectantly for the blonde. Hokage continued. However, it was his wife who took over. Kushina Uzumaki, as current head of the clan, I declared my daughter Might Miku Uzumaki as my successor to the leadership of the clan, being known from now on as Myth Uzumaki. The applause resounded loudly throughout the entire myth room. Smiled arrogantly. If before he already considered himself and his brother as the children of the prophecy and future saviors of the ninja world, this only increased his ego. Minato, I Minato Namek, as the current head of the clan, I declare Asanan Namikaze Uzumaki as my successor in the leadership of the clan, being named from now on as Asanan Amicas. Another round of applause resounded through the house, increasing. Asina's ego, who considered himself to be the future shinobi no kami, his arrogance grew exponentially. The blonde elder was smiling. It had been difficult for him to take a decision, but his firm belief that his eldest son would never be a shinobi, added to the fact that his other two sons could use the Kyuubi chakra, made him make that resolution, forgetting two important details. The first had just banished his eldest son. Therefore, they were no longer legally family, and secondly and more importantly, if an Uzumaki leader discriminated against someone in his family regardless of his reasons, he would no longer be its head. Meanwhile, our protagonist was neither sad nor angry at this, he accepted it with stoicism. But he was able to find a positive side by ceasing to be legally family. He was not under Minato's jurisdiction as legal guardian, which allowed him to take root without any impediment since he was legally an orphan. Finally, the accumulated fatigue became present. In the boy falling sound asleep the next day, Naruto was walking towards the address that the old men gave him. He had sealed his few belongings in some scrolls and then infiltrated his former father's office and copied the data from the Listen no Hatsu. Unlike popular belief, Minato had not improved the Nidame's jutsu, in fact he had only reached level 2 of the 5 that the Senju clan prodigy had designed. After a long walk he arrived at an open field where apparently there was nothing. He was quickly surrounded by Anbu's Anbu tiger. Naruto, no. The boy nodded. Anbu tiger, we were waiting for him, come with me. The Anbu approached the boy and put a hand on his shoulder and then disappeared in a sunsin. They reappeared in a dark warehouse where the Anbu equipment was given to Naruto until his training finished. He would use a flat mask. The next thing they did was show him the facilities. These consisted of various training fields modifiable at will to train in any shinobi area. Then they entered the building that served as residence and headquarters. Anbu tiger, this is your room, Naruto observed. Pay attention. The cabin was simple and austere, perfect for a shinobi. It had a bed, a desk and an Anbu tiger bookshelf. The toilets are communal and are at the end of the hallway. The shower time is at 5 in the morning before training, and at 9 the night breakfast is at 5:30 and the day starts at 6. The lunch break is at 3. It lasts half an hour from 10 at night when dinner is served until 12. It is free time afterward. Cut off the light, put on the armor and the mask, and follow me. Dan-sama and Ruin-sama are waiting for us. Naruto quickly put on his armor, his kunai holder on his right leg, and placed the gun diagonally on his back. Finally he followed the Anbu to the training field, where the two commanders were waiting for him, the two prodigies, an Anbu with a hairstyle that defied gravity and a dog mask. And an Anbu with a deer mask, Yusen. Welcome to Rei's, take your oath. Naruto firmly recited Rei's oath, he had already warned him, Tiger, about this and had recited the oath to him until the boy learned it. Naruto, we are the shield that protects the village, the executioner sword of our enemies, the root that supports the great tree of Konoha. We are shinobi, we are Anbu, beyond the pain, beyond death. I swear allegiance to the hidden village of the leaf and to the country of fire. I swear to watch over my comrades and to obey without a doubt the orders of my superiors. From now on I am faithful to Anbu. Las the Hinobis present there nodded, accepting the oath of the child, not of the ninja who was in front of them. The next thing Hai was placing on his left shoulder was the respective tattoo. Naruto didn't even wince in pain during the dance process. Now I will explain the training plan to you. It will not be for time, your senseis pointed to the Anbus behind his back. They will train you for as long as they consider. You will also be given periodic exams to evaluate if you are ready for active service, despite not having completed your training. Danzo finished, the baton was taken over by Yusen. Yusen Yachi Shisu, who you already know, will train you in jutsu, ninjutsu and combat with weapons. Kakashi pointed to Pella Plata, will train you in the physical aspect and tracking, in addition to working on what you have learned with Itachi Shisui. Finally Rin Nora pointed to the Anbu with Mask of Deer, I will train you more thoroughly in chakra control and if possible in medical ninjutsu. Myself and Danzo will train you in a specialty that you choose and in the possible Kekkenkai. The Sarutobi ended seriously and thus began the ninja path of Naruto. Uzumaki Chapter 4 First Mission and Liberated Blood. It had been almost a year since Naruto had entered Root. During this time the blonde had reduced his potential, reaching the level of Huning in a short time. However, it seemed that the boy had not yet demonstrated all his Shimura Danzo talent. He realized this, so he and Duin would check his status and chakra, since this was strangely scarce for someone with his blood ancestry. Danzo suspected that he might have some seal that distorts the typical characteristics of his ancestry. Our protagonist was lying on a stretcher. As he watched Danzo finish writing a series of kanji on the ground, Danzo Fuinjutsu sealing analysis, at that moment a series of kanji shone on Naruto's body just above the seal that contained the soul of the Kyuubi. Danzo was indignant and began to rant against the Yonda Hokage, and Ruin calmed him down and asked him why he was so angry. Danzo, now I understand why he didn't show the characteristics of his clans. His blood was sealed. Yusen, as if sealed, despite the calm tone with which he spoke, his killer instinct showed how angry he was. I was dancing, that's right, the Yondai may placed restrictive chakra and blood seals on him so that he couldn't show the characteristics of his clans, and I imagine that the idiot thought that the fox could take control of Naruto and regain his power through the powerful chakra. Uzumaki, I can understand that you doubt his ability with the seals, but doubt Shin's own ability and think about how he seemed like the perfect Hokage. Danzo nodded. Yusin looked at Danzo and realized that he was surprised, but he didn't understand why Yusin say what's happening. Danzo looked up and said, Danzo, I think we have inadvertently found out about Naruto's authentic heritage as well. As Minato's supposedly civil ancestry. Yusin, I imagine you're not going to leave me like that, said slightly angry Danzo. Minato makes supposed orphan entity and civilian, has blood belonging to the clans in Gyuchiya. Even Naruto, who was still lying in the seal matrix, was unable to contain a cry of astonishment. Yusin, how could you find out? That was what he said to an incredulous Danzo. Such high level suppressor seals require that introduce blood and chakra, and his chakra is clearly proof of what I say. Yusin, then Naruto will have the Sharingan and can be the Mokuton. Danzo, well, it's a possibility, but the proportion of blood in Jai that he has is low besides that of the entire Seju clan, only the Shodan awakened the Mokuton. Yusin is incredible, the potential that Naruto has. Minato is dumber. And I thought, look, what to waste such potential. Dance, although from what we know Minato has no knowledge of his ancestry. Naruto listened attentively how the two old men spoke, but he relapsed in that these, in their surprise, did not fall into something important. Naruto, Danzo-sama, you and Sama will be of little use knowing this if the Danzo seals are not released. Now I'm going with it. Naruto, the Shimura made a new chain of hand seals and then said Danzo Fuinjutsu, release of blood. As soon as he finished these words, Naruto's body shone, all the seals on him disappearing. A strong pressure was present. It was the Uzumaki chakra released after the brutal explosion of chakra that cracked the ground. Naruto stopped shining and fell to the ground unconscious. His hair was now reddish blonde with some strands. Jed and Tiger take him to his room. He needs to rest. Anbu, Tiger pay the Anbu took Naruto in his arms. Yusin, that child is a box of surprises. Naruto's subconscious. Naruto woke up in a semi-flooded sewer. He got up and he began to walk until he heard a supernatural voice. Kyuubi, so you have come to me, you disgusting brat, said the bitch. With hatred, Naruto did not even flinch at this. He assumed that that space was his mind and that what he had in front of him was the consciousness and soul of the nine-tailed Naruto. Hello Kyuubi, the boy said dryly. The Kyuubi looked at him in amazement. The boy did not feel any fear despite of being in front of the reincarnation of hatred. Kyuubi, you do not feel fear, brat, nor anger or hatred towards me. At the end of the day, I am the reason why first they tortured you, then they locked you up, and finally they banished you, the widowed son. This to enrage Naruto and thus weaken the seal and be able to escape. Naruto looked him straight in the eyes and said, Naruto, add God Kyuubi, and without further ado he left his subconscious, leaving a surprised and enraged Biju behind. The next day, Naruto appeared in front of Yusin. Naruto, you called me Andame-sama. His voice came out of the flat mask that Yusin was wearing. That's right, Naruto, I see that you're better now, so I'm giving you a mission. Kakashi, like the others, considers that you're ready. Naruto immediately knelt down in a position to receive orders. Iris. Your mission is simple, you have to escort from the shadows a shipment coming from Kumo. This shipment is part of the compensation we are receiving from Kumo for the Yuga Point case. It has already been designated by the Hokage on Huning for its protection, but I have decided to reinforce security. What are you going to do? It's your first solo mission. I hope you're up to it. Naruto nodded and left in a shunin of wind. He left the base in Buu and headed to the border. He had an hour left to reach it when he saw the cargo, who was protected by a leaf hing which he instantly recognized was Kushina Uzumaki, his former mother. Naruto was not disturbed by this, the important thing was the mission, and he did not intend to fail. He followed them from the trees at a safe distance and hiding his chakra. In an absolute way, Kushina was one of the best sensors in the village, but not even she could detect. However, she did perceive, like Naruto, 5 other chakra signatures, 2 of Chunin level and 3 of Jounin level. She immediately took out her diamond chains with effort. At the same time, Naruto made half a ram seal and released his gravity seals, preparing to attack. One of the Chunin appeared from a tree and was quickly pierced by one of the Kushina chains. But the other Chunin was easily felled by a Kuna and thrown by it. Suddenly he heard 3 voices behind him: Jounin Uno Katen Gakak 1 Jutsu Jounin 2 Toten Yado Kufusi Jounin 3 Raten Hibashi. The jutsus collided with the chains that Kushina had placed in front of her as a defense. Her old chains would have stopped those jutsus without any problem, but now they were much weaker. They were able to protect her from the Katen and Raten jutsus, but then they vanished. Kushina saw this in disbelief. Her surprise was so great that she forgot about it. Using a Kawarimi being hit by the jutsu leaving her unprotected just when she thought it was her end, and Anbu appeared in a sunsen behind the Jounin, who did not realize her presence and died decapitated without even knowing what or who had killed them. Naruto put away his katana, which had replaced his tance some time ago, observed the 3 decapitated Jounin, and noticed their yacht appointment. indicating that they belonged to Iwa. He picked them up just like the Chunin who carried a musical note. He sealed them next to the corpses of the downed ninjas to examine them later. He was about to leave when he heard a voice behind him. Kushina, this gold, thank you very much, Anyusen said nervously. He just nodded and vanished into the air to go deliver his report to his commanders. Kushina continued escorting the shipment, but he stopped. She felt uneasy, that chakra was familiar to her, but she didn't know where. In addition to the fact that she felt a slight pressure in her chest, she decided not to pay more attention to it and concentrate on the mission. She would think about it calmly once she arrived at the village. Meanwhile, at the headquarters, Anbu Naruto reported to his superiors Naruto mission accomplished. The shipment was attacked by some shinobi. They were not renegades from any village, they were 3 jounins who belonged to Iwa and 2 chunins from an unidentified village. They were carrying false Kiri bands, as well as typical combat material from the Kiri shinobi. I deduce that they wanted to take the shipment and incriminate Kurigakure to cause a war. Naruto finished his report showing the gangs of the murdered Noise and the false gangs of Kiri Danzo Bien. Naruto, you will receive payment for a rank A mission, in addition to the reward. What about Kitsuro? One of the Hunin that Abu beat was a rank A shinobi. So the sum will be large. Naruto nodded respectfully and left the office. Yusen addressed Danzo seriously. Yusen, this is reason enough to declare war on Iwa, plus there's that strange new village of Atagakure. I have a bad feeling the elders. Shin had one thing clear, and that is that his instincts are never wrong. You can see a 10-year-old Naruto kneeling in front of his sis. Today was an important day. Finally, his training had completely ended. Kakashi, Naruto, during these years, you have shown great progress, you have learned everything we no, and you have surpassed us. Kakashi spoke with his disinterested voice, but he was really enormously proud of his student, and the thing is that Naruto had proven to be an unparalleled prodigy in a very short time. He had learned everything they could teach him. He showed almost absolute mastery over all shinobi branches. His taijutsu was impeccable. He had perfected his own fighting style, which he called the Fist of the Kakashi. Considered that even Gai himself, as long as he did not resort to more than 5 doors, could lose in a taijutsu-only combat. In Kenjutsu, he far surpassed his masters, mastering with great ease the katana fighting style of the Anbu forces. His jutsu were powerful and varied, his affinities being wind, lightning and fire, giving him great offensive capacity in Hatsu. He was trained by the Sundaime himself, thus becoming a master of that art. Danzo taught him Fuinjutsu, where he demonstrated why he was in Uzumaki, reaching the maximum level as an unsealed master, only lacking the extra levels of the Uzumaki Sisui. He has surpassed Itachi by far. We are very proud of you, and so it was. He had become a specialist in Shurikenjutsu and Kunai Hatsu. Perhaps the biggest disappointment he had was not having been able to awaken the Sharingan or the diamond chains. But he had managed to master 4 of the 5 levels of Delisan no Hatsu and the Rasengan. It is worth saying that he was enraged when he discovered that his father was not the creator of said jutsu, and that the Rasengan was a jutsu project inspired by the widows that the Nidaime was working on shortly before his death. Basically, the Yondaime was a great shinobi, but at the same time an Yude, since he had become an Hokage, making everyone believe that he had perfected the Irasen no jutsu and created the Rasengan. This only increased the contempt that Naruto had towards the Namikaze, as well as ended the little respect that his senseis still had for the older blonde, who had managed to be able to perform and dispel genjutsu without medical ninjutsu, since he had achieved almost perfect chakra control, since upon releasing the seal and mixing his chakra, it had completely stabilized, eliminating his chakra control problems despite his immense reserves. Itachi, in addition to having surpassed us, has done a large number of missions, and you have been a good squad leader, and Naruto had continued with the missions. Despite his training, he managed to lead a Sundaime assassination squad. However, we believe that something is missing to finish your training. This caught Naruto off guard, who thought that his training I had already finished. Danzo, so you will leave the village Uzushiagakure Nodo in one last training program. We hope that there you can become a true sealing master and perfect your skills in other areas, but first you will receive your mask, and you will graduate to put it simply form of Anbu using Uzumaki. Naruto, remove your mask. From this moment you are no longer in the selection process for Anbu. Choose your new mask. Naruto looked carefully at the exposed masks, stopping at a mask that represented a demon. The mask was black and could be divided to show the upper or lower part of the face. Imagine a samurai mask, but not the historical ones that were taken out of Jikishi and carefully put on. Danzo, good choice Akuma, thus revealing what would be from that moment on the code name from Uzumaki Yuen. Well Akuma, tomorrow you will leave for Uzushiagakure in the company of Itachi Shisu. Kakashi Tenzo said, pointing to an Anbu. Naruto only knew him by hearsay, but was aware that he could Use the legendary Mokuton. A week later the trip to Yuzushi Agakure had not been complicated, directed towards Nami no Kuni where they had continued their journey through the sea until they reached a ruined village that was protected by imposing seals and whirlpools that Naruto recognized and was able to cross them after deactivating them using his blood when they reached the village. As such, a feeling of pain ran through Naruto, making him fall to his knees. When he heard screams of pain and sounds of combat, it was his blood crying with desperation. Images of what happened there invaded his mind, making him cry, but he cried blood and noticed a great burning in his eyes. His senseis approached with concern and watched. With amazement the boy's eyes before he faints. Itachi the Sharingan Chapter 6 The Return and the Hour of the Hypocrites. Naruto was kneeling in front of Danzo and Ruin, had just summarized the 2 years of training he had done in Uzumaki Gakure. During that time he had not stopped doing missions, some alone and others with one of his friends. Senseis had developed the Ringan until the 3-tomer Itachi Shisui had helped him implement the dojutsu to his taijutsu style perfectly. Since his fighting style was based on speed and reflexes, he had also discovered the keys to being able to perform Ellen no jutsu in an absolute way, and those keys were two. The first was to reach the highest level of Seal Master of the Uzumaki clan, and the second was ironically the Sharingan itself, something that would undoubtedly enrage the Senju creator of Senjutsu, who had created his prop style of Kenjutsu, based on in the scrolls he found on the island. People believed that the Uzumaki were great experts in Kenjutsu and that they used a style specific to their clan. But this was false. The Uzumaki only combined the Fuinjutsu with the Kenjutsu of Kurigakure. Their level had increased again, being now classified as SS, the level located just below the SSS level in which there were only 2 shinobi, the now deceased Asurenju and Midoriya. But the blonde had not only added about his training and current level in the bingo book, but had also discovered that several members of the civilian council which had gained power due to Minato's passivity were corrupt traders, collecting large bribes for diverting the merchandise that Konoha bought to other places in the elemental nations. This did not bother Yuzin or Danzo, since they would finally have tests to execute the members of the civilian council who had corrupted the shinobi system and bribed those in charge of the academy in order to facilitate the course of their own children. For the same Danzo, the time has come today. We will clean our village of that unworthy Akumas. Come today, you will be our Yuzin escort. And from today you are the commander of Route U. Danzo, the idiot Minato has requested the Kakashi attack, abandon Anu, so that he can train his children. He is so worried about those 2 useless people that he has decided to create a special team made up of Sasuke. Uchiha, the only unworthy gen of the group, Sakura Aruno, daughter of the civil councilor Miyuki, who has placed her daughter there to see if she manages to send herself with the Uchiha or with a Namikaze and his wife as H and sensei. I suppose she hopes that the presence of Kakashi as a sensei prevented his children from dying on their first mission outside the village. The tone was clearly angry. Who would think of removing a rank S shinobi and Anbu route commander from service to put him as a babysitter for 2 arrogant people? All of this was listening with attention and a stoic gesture on Naruto's part. He was not surprised that he was named commander. After all, he had already surpassed Itachi and Shisui in terms of power and had great experience in the field. In addition, he could serve in all the branches of Anbu, while the Uchiha were more suitable as captains of the assassination and infiltration squads. Danzo could. On the march they left in a Shunshin, reappearing in front of the council door. Immediately Akuma hid so perfectly that none of the Anbu from Lockage they noticed his presence. Danzo and Duin sat in their seats waiting for Minato to start the meeting. Minato, we are gathered here at the request of Yuin-sama. I am starting the meeting. Yusin explained the reason. Yusin, thank you Minato-san. There are 2 reasons. The first and show the flagrant betrayal and corruption of the members of the civilian council. While Danzo was speaking, he was handing out the evidence to each one. Letters, commercial extracts, confessions of some of the ninja's accomplices. The shinobi council was pleasantly surprised. Park was outraged. They already knew about the criminal acts of the civilians, but they had not been able to provide evidence. Therefore they were happy to see that they had no civilian escape. Minato, you must move him away from the direction of Andu. Clearly you are Enel. He could not finish speaking, since his head was cleanly separated from his body. He could see who it was that did this. The members of the civilian council who were involved in acts of betrayal became very nervous, some of them even fainting. Minato was clearly surprised. Even with the Gissen, he couldn't overcome that speed. He didn't even have time to get angry because of it. The interference. Since Danzo proceeded to speak. Danzo, well, now that we have clarified the first point, I would like to introduce you to the shinobi who occupies the position of route command. Anbu. Akuma, show yourself. Just when he finished speaking, an Anbu appeared kneeling in front of Danzo. Yusin with his back to Minato, making it clear who he was loyal to. Those present looked at him with curiosity. The shinobi was wearing a samurai-style armor of color. He wore a black mask that revealed the upper part of his face, showing cold blue eyes, his long jet reddish blonde hair. He danced freely, only held by a ribbon on his forehead so that it did not cover his eyes. Lastly, he carried a katana with a black sheath. Silver guard and black handle under the black cape that fluttered in the wind. The Hokage Anbu came down to intercept the masked man, but when they drew their weapons, they found themselves immobilized, and the fact is that Akuma had released part of his murderous instinct, paralyzing everyone except Danzo using Yusin is enough. Akuma immediately the killing instinct ceased as soon as Minato recovered and could breathe freely again. He ordered his Anbus to withdraw Minato and loosen Sama, not to be disrespectful, but I think he is very young for the position, and the fact is that although Akuma looked about 18 years old instead of the 14 he actually was, he seemed inexperienced to the yondaime. Danzo simply threw Akuma's file at him after reading it. Minato turned pale and was clearly surprised. Shikaku Nara picked up the file and proceeded to read it aloud. His normally boring voice showed surprise. Akuma missions 10B rank 23 or rank 25S rank 13 SS rank classification. In the SS bingo book nicknames Akuma Shinobi Kikoku no Shinobi no rage in appearance unknown abilities May mind unknown uses the unique element Thunder H at first. Shinobi view above cage level. A dead silence was established in the Minato room. You should tell me your abilities and identity. If I don't know who you are or what you are capable of, you can't direct the program to you. Akuma my skills are SS class ninjutsu S class taijutsu fuinjutsu level 15 level S kenjutsu, and my identity is not important, Minato was going to reply, but Yuzen stopped him. Yuzen his identity is no mystery to you, that's all we can tell you, and without further ado Yuan and Akuma left the place, leaving behind a council shinobi and Hokage. Clearly surprised and thoughtful Kakashi was being dragged away by Kushina, the silver pelip, after having served in Anbu for more than a decade, had been forced to reintegrate into the regular forces of Konoha, and for greater humiliation they had assigned him a Genin team where the only one who could be considered a true Shin was not the Uchi, the rest were either a useless fangirl or too hopelessly arrogant, and thinking that those two were Naruto's brothers still didn't explain it to him, so he had decided to take everything calmly and tranquility, but he had not counted on the red-haired Hunin. He was calmly in a tree reading a book on Fuinjutsu when an angry Kushina arrived and had dragged him by the ear so that they could go meet his Genin team. After crawling into the room where the Genin were waiting, he gave them a seemingly bored look, but he was really analyzing them. Sakura Runo, a declared fangirl according to the information she had, was good in the theoretical aspects and had decent chakra control, but her attitude held back all her positive aspects physically. Her condition was unfortunately, it was clearly evident that he did not eat well, he was probably following some ridiculous diet, myth, and Asina, two arrogant people who could not do anything without the Kyuubi's chakra. Kakashi was surprised that his training had only focused on that, reaching the point of neglecting the rest of his skills. Shinobi, if they weren't so arrogant to the point of believing themselves to be Kamis on Earth, maybe he could turn them into decent shinobi, but he was aware that that was impossible. Lastly, Sasuke Uchiha. A ninja with great talent and focused on his career, he had been trained by his father and his brother. This had led him to awaken the Sharingan and evolve it to the three Tors. He was without a doubt the best Genin of the team, good at precise taijutsu with a shuriken. Akuna with a lot of potential. Kakashi, the first impression I have of you is that you are unworthy being shinobi. He was cold, sharp and direct, leaving aside his mask of indifference. Kushina, who was behind him, tried to hit him on the head in anger, but the silver-haired boy stopped the blow without turning. Kakashi waited for them upstairs and left in a shunin to the roof. Followed by a very angry Kushina. At the same time Akuma was heading thoughtfully towards the academy after the council meeting. The Sandom had given him the mission to come to the aid of the rebellion in Kiri and support them in their fight against the Mad Mizuka. Yugura would leave the next day, so he had decided to see how Kakashi was doing with his new team. He arrived at the rooftop. He stood behind Kakashi and Kushina, who were waiting for their students. He told Kakashi that he was there releasing some chakra. Kakashi left. She noticed immediately, but not like Kushina, that she continued scolding Kakashi for treating his children like that. He totally ignored her. Shortly after, the things arrived. Genin Sasuke noticed Naruto, who stopped hiding to see if anyone was able to detect him. Sasuke threw a kunai at him, and it never arrived since as soon as he threw it, Akuma used his perfect control over the wind element to stop him. Kushina, he finally realized of his presence and used his adamantine chains to attack him. He stopped them with one hand. Akuma, up to this point your famous chains have been weakened. Bloody habanero. Kushina was very surprised. She knew that his chains had been weakened, but still they should not be so easy to stop. He tried unsuccessfully to absorb the masked man's chakra. It was then that he realized that he had used nothing more than pure force to stop his chains. Suddenly, Akuma tightened his grip on the chain, causing it to fade away. Kushina was thinking about yes, let Minato know when Kakashi spoke. Kakashi, I think you've already had fun. Akuma, the Anbu appeared next to Kakashi in the blink of an eye so fast that not even Sasuke with his Rinnegan could see him. Akuma, so this is the team of useless people who have been assigned to you by a fangirl. Two arrogant people, a true shinobi and a Huning who is clearly weakened, now I don't think they will arrive. And I grabbed Kushina, she was indignant. First, Kakashi had belittled her children, and now that masked man arrives and humiliates her. Her hair began to rise, taking on the appearance of 9 furious men. Tails as if she were still the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki when she noticed something cold on her neck. Akuma, if you weren't doing that. She spoke to him with an icy tone and a cold look that only conveyed one thing, fear. Kushina stayed in her place frozen, she looked in the direction where the masked man must have been to see him standing there calmly. When Akuma saw that the Uzumaki was relaxing, he vanished. The Bunin box without smoke or noise. Kushina was now even more surprised that boy was able to do the Bunin box without noise. Hand seals, no smoke. Of course, he was not a normal shinobi. Kushina, do you know him? Kakashi say, he said, trying to contain the tremor in his voice. Kakashi, yes guys, I present to you, who was my first student. Akuma, current commander Anbu shinobi of SS class. He is the most powerful shinobi in the village and one of the most powerful in the world. The Genin team was surprised. Sasuke bowed in respect towards the great shinobi who was there. Meanwhile, Sakura hid behind Sasuke. Instead, Myth and Asina showed how stupid they were. Asina, as a son of the Kage, I order you to train me. If you don't, our father will punish you. Akuma completely ignored them and turned to Kakashi. Akuma, tomorrow I'm leaving mission so I won't be at home. Kakashi, I understand. Can you say what the mission is about? Akuma, normally I wouldn't be able to, but I know that Itachi will tell you later, as will Minato. Kushina. Also, it's not exactly a secret mission. In fact, if they find out, it would be the best. Kakashi. Okay, now you've awakened. I'm curious about what mission Akuma is about. I'm going to help you. To the rebels in their war against Yugura, they do not have any shinobi capable of defeating a perfect Jinchuriki like the Yondai Mizukage. Kakashi. Now I understand that the rebellion is outnumbered by 4-1, and in addition to the fact that Yugura is a formidable opponent, you are the one. The only one who can put an end to such an army and defeat the Mizukage. Also, if the news spreads that you are going to support them, the possible mercenaries who may think about joining Yugura will think twice. Akuma only nodded. He didn't know what to think. Kakashi. He was one of the most powerful ninjas in the village, and it was hard for her to believe that this boy was so strong. Sakura didn't fully understand what they were talking about. She only knew that it was better not to bother that masked man. Sasuke marveled that there were such strong shinobi in Konoha. Myth and Asina wanted they had to train them, and they spoke to him in their capricious and pampered tone, like, you've heard me before, I order you to train us. Myth, or do you want the Yondai to punish you? Akuma gave them a cold and merciless look. He increased his chakra and killer instinct, making the ground lower. He will crack hand. The two brothers will fall to the ground, barely able to breathe. Akuma, watch your words. Genin, I am the commander Anbu, your superior. You cannot order me anything, and I don't care who your father is. Another outburst, and you will never see the light of day again. Soul, you understood me. Dainin shouted the last word and increased his chakra even more until Kakashi put a hand on his shoulder, indicating that that was enough. Akuma simply turned around, gave Kakashi a greeting as a farewell, and left the place. Kakashi. He turned angrily towards the two Kakashi brothers. You're worse than the scum. You are just two arrogant and spoiled children who have been given everything on a silver platter. You do not deserve to be shinobi. You believe that because you are children of lockage, your level will not kill you. It's unfortunate and your mentality is unworthy. Kushina, I refuse to train those idiots, and I think talk to sensei. I never imagined that the problem was so big. Look, raising them up to this point is not enough, with that on top of threatening him. The sun has barely risen in Konoha, however, you can see a shinobi at the gates of the village. This ninja is none other than Naruto Uzumaki, better known as Akuma, his codename in Anbu. The commander of the Konoha Special Forces was quite angry under his mask, and this was due to the eternal Chunin Izumo and Kodu, who were in charge of registering entrance and exit of the village, but that pair would never change, nor had they fallen deeply asleep. Akuma was increasingly indignant. He was taking one last walk around the village before leaving for Kurigakure, and his surprise had been capital in many ways. He had reviewed the positions in the wall to find a group of Chunins asleep, and with clear signs of having been drunk, he had woken them up and, ignoring their protests and excuses, he had taken them with a Biki Yanko for interrogation and torture. Then he had gone to the hospital to pick up some medical supplies to his mission to find the hospital without a single enraged doctor on duty, had dragged the hospital director out of his house, and had kindly made it clear to him what his duties were as Metin of the Leaf, and finally these two who as always were asleep. Akuma, you're tired of all those impos. He slammed the table where they were leaning on that tough guy, making them wake up terrified. Kodu, please kill him. I have a family. Izumo. Kill me. Wait a second. But if you don't even have a girlfriend, this was observed by Akuma, who was fed up with his antics. Akuma intervened, not only do you not keep your position, but you also do these antics, you are pathetic. When the tough one recognized Naruto's mask, they froze, since the reputation of a nervous Akuma, well known among the Leaf Shinobi, tried to contain the shudder that was already running through them. Akuma looked at this with annoyance. It was incredible how far the village had fallen under Minato's command. The shinobi had softened and rusted, the commanders were no longer respected, and the defensive system was practically non-existent. I will have to change this later, thought Naruto. As long as he was Commander Anbu, he was not going to tolerate a single breach in the security of the Akuma village. You are in luck, scumbags. I have things to do, and I can't take care of you, so I'm going to give you one last chance. You better do not fail and fulfill your duty perfectly, or I will take you to interrogation and torture so that Unko and Vicky can have fun with you. The duo drank a dry drink and felt frantic. Akuma left from there in the direction of Anbu's thirst to leave the village through one of the tunnels that the Anbus used. Meanwhile, I was thinking about how to reinforce the security of the village and increase the level of the Gainans. Maybe I should talk to the Sundai May to go give a talk to both the academy teachers and the students. Shinobi candidates. Thinking about this, he left the village and headed towards Kurigakure. He had just entered the country of water when he noticed two considerably large chakra signatures moving towards his direction. He hid his chakra and lay in ambush to see who were the ones heading towards. He waited briefly until he saw two shinobi, apparently from the rebel side, approach Kuma. True to his code of knocking down first then asking, he emerged in a burst of speed from the bush where he was hiding and knocked out the two strangers. Then he supported them against a tree and he sat down to wait for them to wake up. After a while, he could see how one of the strangers began to wake up. He was a man of about 40 years old with blue hair combed up and wearing a patch covering one of his eyes, but Kuma didn't. He let it slip that it was a Bakugan, since when he knocked them out the shinobi was using it. Akuma, I see that you're awake, tell me what it is. The crackling of the fire had asked a question, since this was the agreed upon password. Now it was just time to hear the answer. The roar of the sea, that was the agreed response. Akuma sighed and untied them. Akuma, sorry for the abruptness, but I had to make sure. The stranger nodded while rubbing his wrists. He proceeded to introduce himself to Ao. My name is Ao, and he pointed to his companion, who was already beginning to wake up. It's Chijuro. His companion was a young man with glasses and shark teeth, who carried a sword covered in bandages. Alma, can you call me Kuma now? Could you guide me to your camp? I have to talk to your leader Pao and the rest of your squad. They've only just given me sent to me. Ao, he was cursing inside. Konoha promised them help to win the war definitively, and they only sent them an Anbu anyway. This was better than nothing, so resigned, he guided the Anbu to his camp. Akuma looked at the camp in detail. It was true that the situation of the rebellion was desperate. The camp was disorganized and many wounded could be seen. It was clear the desperation that was in his eyes. He went to a complex of tents in better condition than the others, apart from the fact that there were a couple of shinobis standing guard. Entered and began to walk through the labyrinth dotted with shops until they reached a shop that served as their headquarters. There, a beautiful woman with reddish-brown hair, beautiful green eyes and a spectacular figure was waiting for them. The light of most men, Akuma took a couple of seconds to admire the beauty of the woman who, dressed in a blue battle dress with mesh netting, conveyed beauty and danger at the same time. In front of him was a true kunoichi, beautiful and somewhat lethal. Very different from the pathetic fan HS that were in the Konoha Academy. Hello Anyusan, my name is Mayuri, and I am the leader of the rebellion. Akuma bowed slightly before speaking. Akuma, hello Misama, can you call me Akuma? I hope I can help. Could you inform me of the situation? Mei smiled slightly. She liked that Anbu, and he seemed very willing to help. In addition to the fact that she could feel his worked muscles under the armor, perhaps it would be of use to him in something other than war. That's clear to me. Come closer, please. Naruto approached the table and looked at the map. Mei stood behind him, but his closeness didn't bother her. In fact, she liked him. Maybe if he were a satyr, he could have a little dalliance before returning to Konoha. Mei, the situation is critical. Yugura has just under 8,000 shinobi, and our forces don't surpass him. The 2,000 have overwhelmed us on the southern flank, and we are about to give way in the north. Akuma focused completely on the map and began to analyze the situation while in his head, he simulated various actions. His results, after being thoughtful for about 5 minutes, concluded his analysis. And Akuma spoke. Indeed, the situation is bad. In this situation, I can only think of one course of action. Mei, what have you thought? Akuma, I need us to confront them on this plane, but we have to get all their Yugura forces out, including Pao. You're crazy that it's a suicide. They don't normally outnumber an Akuma in proportion of 4. Yes, but I can take care of his army and Yugura. That's why I came here. Akuma's confidence and determination was total. May I realized this and realized that I wasn't lying, that I was actually capable of finishing off such an army. I couldn't believe this and continued ranting against Akuma's plan until I was fed up. Shut up or I'll kill you. He said it with a slight smile, but the tone was cold. Extremely cold. He was terrified and kept quiet. Instantly, it's not like we have any other option, so we will follow Akuma's plan. Now I will show you your room with this. He left the room followed by Akuma and guided him to a small tent with a bed and a closet. After Akuma entered, he also entered and closed the tent cloth. Then he playfully approached Akuma, who had his back turned. Mei Kuma-san, what do you say we have fun together? There is no man worth it here. Her voice was captivating and seductive. Akuma withdrew the part bottom of his mask and turned around to find Mei, who hugged him. Pressing against him, she quickly gave him a kiss on the lips. Before losing control, Akuma separated slightly. Akuma, now he won't be able to be mean once he's finished with Yagura, and his army will once again be at his absolute disposal. His deep and somewhat hoarse voice was incredibly seductive to Mei, who gave him another kiss on the mouth, this time deepening it. He withdrew, leaving Akuma with a slight smile. Akuma, it seems that this mission is going to be very pleasant. Chapter 9, Hero or Assassin. Everything was already prepared. Akuma had infiltrated several bases of Yagura's army, making him angry. These infiltrations to sabotage supplies and wear down the Mizukage shinobi. Once the priority objective of enraging Yagura and inciting them to present battle in the open field had infiltrated the very headquarters of the Jinchuriki's forces to obtain information about the exact composition of his army. The Yura army was made up of 7953 shinobi, 3470 chunins, 3530 jounins, 230 Anbu and 723 genins who served of support in the rear. Akuma was surprised by the amount of hings and chunins that Yagura had, so he asked Mei, what was the reason for that? Mei, it is true that Yagura has many shinobi of chunin and jounin rank, but their quality is questionable, at least in the case of the chunin, since many of them until recently were hennings. Our reports indicate that many have been promoted to increase the number. The frontline fighters. Akuma nodded before executing his plan. He warned Mei, Akuma, Mei-sama, I want you to know that I'm not going to incapacitating that army. I am going to eliminate it completely. It will be a massacre, and it will take a lot for Kurigakure to recover. I know, Akuma Mason, but it is the only way out. Their fanaticism would prevent them from being able to reintegrate. When this is over, they have too much hatred towards Akuma bloodline users. He bowed, accepting Mei's words, and went to his tent to get ready. He took out his katana from an unsealed scroll and put on his armor. He was checking the fastenings so that it would not hinder his movements when he felt Mei's presence at the door of his tent moments later. Afterwards, she entered to find Akuma, who had not yet adjusted the back of his armor, leaving his well-formed and muscular back exposed. Mei stayed for a few seconds admiring Akuma's muscles, then she approached the Konoha Anbu and helped him finish placing the armor, then adjusted the katana to his back, and finally he placed the cape over the armor. Akuma gave him a look and a feeling of gratitude and left his tent to go to his combat station. As soon as it was dawn on the plain that both sides had chosen for the final confrontation, on one side the imposing Yagura army, much larger in number and very confident in their victory, on the other side, the rebel side. But these were quite far behind, almost outside the plain, except for a shinobi who was in front of the rebel army. Akuma was already in his position, very advanced compared to the rest of the rebel army, analyzing in detail the enemy army that was already in perfect formation. Suddenly one clones of Akuma appeared on the battlefield, this one alone or towards his clones, they immediately appeared. They launched thousands of Siemens towards the Yagura army. The Mizukage shinobi immediately protected themselves by raising imposing walls of water with the Suin Sujin Kaijutsus. However, the Akuma clones had not aimed at the enemy ninjas, but at their feet, and had improved their launches with wind chakra, causing them to cross the walls of water, sticking into the ground under the feet of the Mizukage shinobi. Almost none of them were injured by this, so they gave the order to advance, but just when they were going to start moving, Akuma suddenly disappeared. Shinobi of the Mizukage began to fall dead for no apparent reason. Akuma's point of view, when the Siemens were in position, I drew my katana and executed Mayan no Jutsu level 4. This level was the second most advanced of those designed by the Nidaime Hokage, since to perform it, there were that being a seal master capable of engraving the seal on something as minimal as his own. In addition to the fact that the ID was such that not even a flash was produced, great resistance was necessary to not be disintegrated by the speed of movement. Akuma teleports almost instantaneously in a way that was not perceptible to the human eye. Killing with his katana every shinobi that was in his attack range with Mayao, even it was not possible to explain what was happening before his eyes. The Yagura army was being annihilated by something invisible, only that Ao knew who was the cause of that Sasaraho. It is impossible how he is doing it. Mile. It seems that Akuma has managed to develop the Yonda technique, Mi Hokage even more. Akuma, how much time has passed? Seconds, minutes, hours, I am not aware of it. Now there are only two things, my katana and the enemy are as if they were a weightless being. I am incapable of thinking about anything else. My senses have become more acute. My Sharingan shines in its maximum splendor. The blood of those I kill falls on me and suddenly Everything stops, the killing is over, period. Not even 10 seconds had elapsed, general narrative, when the rebels came out of their stupor, a great cheer from victory spread among their ranks. And on the other side of the battlefield, there was no one alive except a lone figure covered in blood, his katana glowed crimson, and at his feet 7,000, dead shinobi annihilated, was undoubtedly a terrifying sight. A single man had eliminated almost the entire shinobi forces of one of the 5 great ninja villages. This man was Akuma Anbu from Konoha. However, he was aware that this was not over yet. He still had to finish off the Mizukage Yugura shinobi of S rank, and perfect Jinchuriki as if it were a premonition, a bestial roar was heard on the plain. The cause of which was none other than the Mizukage, and Biju mode. Akuma gave him an indifferent look with his chakra chains. It was very easy to immobilize a Biju, yes, if Yugura fights without Biju mode, and only resorting to the chakra cloak he could make things much more difficult. Akuma took out his chains, and he stabbed the Biju, starting to drain his chakra. The Guru realized this and came out of Biju mode, freeing himself from the chains. As soon as he fell to the ground, he traced a chain of seals and said, Yugura suit. On Ibak Funojutsu, the great wave was directed at Kuma, who drew a chain of seals and said Akuma Raiten Hibashi. Akuma's jutsu crossed Yugura's, he blocked it with his staff which disintegrated. Consequently, Akuma analyzed it with his Sharingan and could notice that his chakra was altered, a sign that he was under a Genjutsu, which must be extremely powerful to be able to affect a Jinchuriki. Akuma, in a burst of speed, appeared next to Yugura and hit him with 2 fingers on the neck, completely blocking his network of chakra. This would have killed him if it hadn't been for Akuma hitting him again at another point, reopening his chakra network. Yugura fell to the ground unable to move, but still conscious. Yugura thanks Akuma. I deduce that you were aware of the crimes I committed, but you couldn't do anything. Yugura, in fact, it was as if my will had disappeared. Akuma, who put you in the Genjutsu? Yugura, I don't know. He was wearing an orange and black mask. Besides the fact that he had the Sharingan, Akuma processed the information. The description fit that of the masked man who freed the Kirby in Konoha Point. Without a doubt, he must have been a shinobi of enormous power. Yugura, I have a request to make. This caught the attention of Akuma, who listened. Sincerely, Yugura. Kill me. I have committed too many crimes. It doesn't matter that I didn't want to. It's a weight on my conscience that I can't bear. Akuma nodded and left. He bowed respectfully to the shinobi who stood before him. Without a doubt, Yugura was a man of honor. Akuma, I will also see that your name is cleared. Yugura nodded and watched as Akuma's katana headed for his neck, and so Yugura and Dame Mizukage Akuma died. He picked up the shinobi's body and covered it with a blanket and then headed towards the rebels. Advance time. 2 weeks later, after the defeat of Yugura, the rebels occupied Kurigakure and appointed Mei Terumi as Godame. Mizukage Akuma kept his word and told the reality behind Yugura's actions. The shock was great among the Kairish shinobi, but this quickly gave way to rage against the masked man. Akuma was also there, and he was treated like a hero. This was uncomfortable for him since he knew that in the world shinobi the heroes and villains only differed depending on the point of view from which you view them. His mission was almost over. He would return to Konoha the next day. He was in his room collecting his things when there was a knock at the door. He opened the door to meet Mei Terumi. She is not here. She didn't let him talk, but instead she took off the bottom part of his mask and kissed him, pushing him into the room and closing the door behind her. Mei stood up from Akuma and said, Mei. So you were thinking of leaving tomorrow without keeping your promise? Akuma, that would never happen. It should be said that they both had a lot of fun. At night, without commitments, they only gave pleasure to each other. The next day Akuma was fired by Mao at the gate of Kurigakure. Mei, thank you very much Akuma for everything. Akuma, has been a pleasure. Mei-sama. Mei, I will go to the finals of the Chunin promotion exams to sign an alliance. I hope we meet again. Akuma, I will look forward to our reunion now. I was stunned. I did not understand why. There was suddenly so much complicity between Nadenu and Sumika. Akuma bowed in farewell and said goodbye. He left there towards Konoha. He stood for a moment at the door thoughtfully and then headed to Ao. I think he lives up to his fame. Pow, what does Misak-sama Mike mean? Hano has sent us his best SS class Anbu Akuma in the bingo book, although I never imagined that his power would be so truly terrifying, that he was, I'm sure, although there is something that intrigues me. Pow, and what is it? What is his true power? Pow is even more powerful. May, I have the feeling that we have not seen nothing of his authentic capacity. After saying these words, May retired, leaving behind the completely paralyzed he felt great fear towards Linbu, but also respect and admiration. Chapter 10 Naman no Kuni. Naruto had just arrived in Konoha after his mission in Kurigakure. He was going to give the report of his mission, but neither Danzo nor Yuzin were in the Enu base, so he deduced that they must be at the Hokage Tower in some meeting, so he headed there. Along the way he began to observe the village while he advanced among the buildings. So much peace, so much kindness made him sick, and it was precisely he who was the most aware of how putrid and hypocritical the people of the village were. If it weren't for Hyun and Danzo would surely have deserted a long time ago. However, the 2 old men had managed to get him to The good side of the village, such as the Akamichi who had fed him when the rations his parents gave him were insufficient, or the Yuga of the secondary branch who notified him when the members of the main branch sought him out to practice the gentle fist with them. Together with his senseis they had convinced him to fight for Konoha, although sometimes he felt his will waver slightly, and the fact is that even though the clans except those of the main branch of the Yuga had treated him well, the majority of the civilian population, as well as many of the shinobi not from the clans, had treated him as well. To the demon inside him, that's why he wore his mask, it was a reminder of everything that had happened to him, and his will of fire, immersed in his thoughts, reached the tower. Hokage entered and went to Minato's office. He asked the secretary if the Sundai Mei and Danzo were there. The secretary was terrified by Linbu's threatening appearance and did not respond. Akuma sighed and knocked on the door after hearing Yonda's pass. Hokage entered the room. The Sundai Mei and Danzo were sitting in some armchairs on one side of the room, while that Minato was at his desk. Akuma, I see that you have already returned from your mission. I hope that everything went according to our interests. Danzo, well, Akuma, complete report. Akuma, oh, just as our information indicated, the rebellion was in a critical situation, harassed by all the flanked and vastly outnumbered. In that situation, I could only think of one solution, and that was to incite them into combat in the open field to provoke them. I infiltrated their bases and cut their logistical lines. Then I obtained information about the exact composition of their army. They had 7,953 shinobi. 3470 chunin, rank 3570 jounins, 230 Anbus and 723 gainins. When they went out to fight in the open field, Amira and SH, no jutsu to annihilate their forces. Then I finished off Igura, who had been controlled by a genjutsu. The description of the subject who controlled him matches that of the masked man who attacked the village 15 years ago. Silence fell in the room while they assimilated what Akuma Yuin said. This is very worrying, Danzo. Yes, it is a great danger to the village. Akuma, continue. Akuma, the new Mizukage is Mei Terumi, the leader of the rebellion. He plans to come to the village during the final of the Chunin exams in a few months to strengthen the Iru alliance. Thanks, Akuma. You can leave. Akuma was going to leave there when Minato spoke for the first time in the entire conversation. Minato, Akuma, how is it possible that you have learned my Iris and no Jutsu level 2? That Jutsu is my property, therefore you have illegally expropriated it. Akuma Yondaime, I did not use the Iris and no Jutsu level 2, but level 4 besides. You should have realized that I have learned the Jutsu. It is because I have in my possession a copy of the original scroll, and therefore I am aware that you did not perfect the Gisen, but only reached level 2 of the 5 that the Nidaime had designed. I also know that the Rasengan is another Jutsu designed by the Nidaime that you appropriated. That means that they are the village's Jutsu, not yours. Minato remained silent since they had discovered him. Akuma, if you allow me, I have to improve the village's defenses. Akuma left there before breaking out and attacking with everything. Minato had not only lied to everyone and monopolized a jutsu in the village, but he had also been so low as to falsely accuse him of expropriation when he was the one guilty of that charge. Furious, he arrived at the barrier division of the village. There he improved the conditions. Defense and detection systems, including a protective chakra shield capable of withstanding a bijadama and a detection barrier capable of noticing negative emotions. The next thing he did was place 12 squads of 3 Chunin and a Hunin to patrol the wall. That way there were no blind spots in the lookouts, in addition to putting 5 Anbu squads, 1 at each door to serve as reinforcements if necessary. He was about to reach the house he shared with Kakashi Shisui when his Anbu tattoo flashed. The sign that Yusuno Danzo, they called him. Akuma sighed with resignation and headed to the Hokage tower. This time he appeared in the office directly through a lightning shunin. As soon as he appeared he noticed 2 things: a messenger toad on the desk and a very nervous Minato. Akuma was going to ask what was happening when Iron beat him to it. Yusin, thank you for coming. We know you're tired, but we have another mission for you. Akuma knelt down and lowered his head in a position to receive orders. Danzo. The mission is to serve as support for Kushina's Genin team. Since their C-rank mission, he has risen to rank at this. He missed Kuma, since as Commander Yu that mission was well below his assignment. However, he noticed that Yuzin was telling him in signs that Akuma would explain later what his destination was. Onamnoi. Akuma nodded and left in a sunsin, reappearing on the roof of the tower where he had perceived Yuin's chakra. Indeed, there was his superior who had emerged in a Shunin after replacing himself with a clone without Minato. Noticing it, Akuma knelt again. Yuin, Nakuma, your mission is not only, you should also take care of the cat gangster, as you already know Fui, one of those involved in the corruption network that involved several of the civil councillors. So you must undermine him and obtain all his properties for the village as a rank mission. I would have entrusted it to someone else. But Minato has requested our best Anbu once again. He has placed the safety of his family above the benefit of the village. If he continues like this, we will have no choice but to resort to Article 15,512. Akuma nodded and wished with all his soul that Minato would give them an excuse to use that article. You and good that it's not important. Now go complete the mission. Akuma left the village at high speed in the direction of Namankuli with Kushina's team. The mission had gone on normally until they were attacked by the demon brothers of Kurigakure, who had hidden themselves using their Hon. Mugak no Hutsu, but the trick had not worked since Kushina with his sensory abilities had detected them. Yasuke, who was doing the mission with the S team, had noticed due to the fact that it had not rained in weeks. Point of view, Sasuke was being unbearable as Kakashi was on mission. I had been temporarily assigned to the team to do an escort mission, and to make matters worse, I had to put up with the idiots of Asina and Myth, who do nothing but brag that they are the sons of Lockage who carry the Kbai, and the next shinobi Noi. On top of that, their mother kept agreeing with them they were pathetic. The story continues below. Then I noticed a puddle of water. Something strange since it had not rained in weeks. Discreetly activated my Sharingan, and I got ready. Suddenly two shinobi came out, and they launched towards Tazuna. One was stopped dead by Kushina while I faced the other. The shinobi pounced on me. I avoided his attack and quickly drew seals. Sasuke Kakino Jutsu. My Hutsu caught the Kalsanal shinobi off guard almost at the same time. The other was knocked down. And then captured by Kushina. We asked him some questions, finding out so Tazuna had lied about the rank of the mission. The most prudent thing was to return, but Asina refused. Asina, I am the next shinobi no Kami, son of Lockage. Those bastards can't touch me. Sasuke, what are you? He's an arrogant idiot. You didn't do anything when they attacked us. You stood there scared to death and now you want to act macho. It's clear that they don't have the level for this mission. Your skills are pathetic. I'm not going to risk my neck because of your stupid pride. The best is to retire. And as a student of Kakashi, he had already faced a couple of missions from Argoa, and he was fully aware that those two were not capable of carrying out the mission, nor were they even worthy of being considered shinobi. But Soina threw a tantrum, and his sister seconded it. My god, they are just two children playing. I thought that Kushina would have some common sense, but I was wrong. She decided to indulge the little boy. Sasuke, very well, but I will not move until we have informed Hokage, in addition to calling for reinforcements. Now Kushina did show a little common sense, heeding my suggestion, and sending a messenger toad to Konoha. Minato gave him the contract. We were close to reaching Nami no Kuni when we were surrounded by a strange fog. Clearly this was not normal, so I activated my Sharingan just in time to deflect slash with the tent that Kakashi had given me. When my training in Kenjutsu began, I slashed a strange and enormous sword that became embedded in a tree. Just after that, a burly shinobi appeared with his mouth covered in bandages. He jumped and landed on the handle of the sword. Huge sword. Go with Quila Habanero Bloody Kushina Mamachi's Abusa Demon of the Hidden Fog. Stay behind. As a rank in the bingo book, we did what Kushina ordered, then the fog thickened and an enormous murderous intention was present. It affected me, but not too much in the end, and in the end, it was much smaller than my brother Akashi sensei's. But Asina and Mito were terrified to the point that Asina stained her pants and Mito started crying. I was still attentive to whatever actions Abusa could take. At that moment, I noticed a presence near me. I turned my back and then made a downward slash at Zabuza, who was behind me. He vanished in water. Sasuke Munin. Zabuza, not bad boy, not bad. The voice sounded from the right, and quickly Kushina threw several shuriken at Zabuza, who blocked them with his sword. Then Kushina drew a series of seals and exclaimed Kushina Fon Repus, using the wind jutsu to dissipate the fog. Zabuza KSSS, I hate wind. Users. Then he engaged with Kushina in a Kenjutsu fight in which Zabuza had the advantage. Kushina Rinkanata used his chains and tried to pierce Zabuza with them, however they were easily dispelled by Zabuza's Kubikiri. Zabuza, what a disappointment. Then he hit her hard on the back, sending her flying crashing into a tree. Too weak to move, so Sasuke, we have to leave. With some luck we'll focus on my mother and we will be able to escape. That made me explode. Sasuke, you are a real shame of a shinobi. I'm going to tell you something cowardly. Those who abandon their companions are worse than the scum, and on top of that she is your fucking mother. Oops, if you want spoiled son of I dropped it, because I won't do it. I grabbed my tent more firmly and launched myself at Zabuza. He threw his Kubikiri towards me too quickly for me to dodge. I interposed my tent to try to stop an impact that did not arrive. General narrative, and it had arrived just when Kushina had been defeated. He had been disgusted by his brother's cowardice and was filled with pride when he saw the courage of his sensei's little brother. When Zabuza threw his Kubikiri, he also threw his katana, making it pass through the hole that the other had, deflecting his path to a tree and then appear in front of Zabuza and throw his Akuma weapon at him. There you have your sword, Zabuza, your partner is in the tree behind you. Don't worry, I haven't killed him. Zabuza looked carefully at the newcomer. When he recognized the person in front of him, he lay down. to Tremble's Abukuma, who was going to say that they would send you. Zabuza began to leave without losing sight of the Konoha Anbu when Asina showed what an idiot she was once again. Asina, that's oops, you don't have a chance against me. Zabuza doesn't give me, make them laugh. You're so scared that you've shit yourself. It's not you that I'm afraid of, it's him, he said, pointing to Kuma with clear fear in his voice. In the last part, Guz Kuma rank SS Anbu from Konoha, who 2 weeks ago annihilated more than 7,000 shinobi in seconds. Cat pays well, but not for all the money in the world would I face such a demon. This left everyone present impressed. Akuma Stoiko addressed Zabuza. Akuma, I know you are here because of the order that Mei gave you to collect money for the rebellion. I deduce that this was your last job before returning, now that Yugura has died, so I offer you a deal. Zabuza, I'm all ears. Akuma, tell me where Gato is hiding, so I can eliminate him, and in exchange Kurigakure will be able to keep half of his goods. Zabuza, I guess it's better that your hands die, and that Konoha gets everything. I agree. Akuma, fine, now we need a place to rest and make a plan. Tazuna intervened for the first time. Tazuna, my house is not far. Akuma will do, thank you. And so they arrived, guided by him builder, to a modest house in the town where they met Tsunami, Tazuna's daughter, and his grandson, and Nari, who looked at them with obvious displeasure. Asina picked up her mother, who had ended up falling into unconsciousness shortly after the appearance of Akuma. Izabuza picked up his disciple, who was completely paralyzed by some Siemens with paralyzing poison that he had thrown at Akuma, and then they were guided to Tazuna's house. Once there, they were received by Tazuna's daughter, a young woman with a great resemblance to Mikoto Uchiha. Tazuna was completely disgusted with how he would have been able to abandon his defenseless mother when he told Tsunami. Every trace of kindness he could show Asina disappeared. It is worth saying that Tsunami was very scared when he saw Zabuza, since he knew he was one from the cat mercenaries. However, he calmed down after you explained it. The one they almost never saw was Inari, and the few times they saw each other it was extremely uncomfortable, but in fact they behaved in the same arrogant and unbearable way as always. 2 very fun days passed until Kushina woke up. During those 2 days, Akuma, thanks to Zabuza's information, had annihilated the different camps of cat mercenaries that were in the area. Only cats remained, who took refuge in the protected old castle of the daimyo. For about 2,000 mercenaries, the only thing the rest of the shinobi of Konoha knew was that Akuma went out at dawn and returned at dusk covered in blood that was clearly from his enemies. Akuma did not take more than an hour to finish off the mercenaries. The rest of the time he spent time outside. He dedicated himself to training his sensory ability, which had recently increased greatly to the point where he could feel the natural energy that surrounded him stronger every day. He had spoken with Zabuza, and they had decided that they would finish off Cat that same night. When he returned to the going to Tazuna's house at night to finish getting equipped, Kushina had already woken up. The first thing she did was hug her children and then thank Asina for having defended her. Akuma, I didn't understand what had happened there. The one who had defended her was Sasuke, so she turned to him in search of an explanation. Sasuke was so weak after confronting Zabuza that she thought I was the one who wanted to abandon her and that she was the one who refused. She answered him in a whisper, but great anger was clearly evident in her voice. Sasuke told her, I really don't care what he thinks of me, I have a clear conscience, which is what matters to me. It's annoying that Asina plays the hero when he wanted to abandon her. Akuma nodded and was about to ask about Zabuza's whereabouts to finish the mission once and for all. Then Kushina saw him. Kushina, and where were you when my baby defeated Zabuza? So that's it. What he told his mother, the Anbu thought he was going to answer Kushina when Sasuke, fed up, intervened. Sasuke, Kushina-san, Asina did not defeat Zabuza. He gave up when Akuma-sama appeared later. Alaska Akuma-sama offered him a deal to finish off Gato Kushina instead. To investigate what else his son could have lied to him, he scolded the Anbu with fury. Kushina, as if it were a deal. The scream already ended up driving Akuma out of his mind. Akuma silenced Jounin. I remind you that I am an Anu commander, and therefore your superior. Kushina was not there, accustomed to you raising your voice at her, due to her position as Lokage's wife and heroine of the previous war. People had a lot of respect for her. Akuma took advantage of her stupor to continue. Akuma, don't raise your voice at me again, and don't think that because she is the wife of the Yondaime. I cannot execute by subordination because I can and I will not hesitate to do so. The icy tone made it clear to Kushina that she should not insist anymore, but her daughter was not that intelligent. Myth, don't believe so much. If you do that, Dad would execute you. Myth spoke to her typical tone of superiority and arrogance, sure to intimidate Linbu. How wrong Akuma was. Listen to me, little girl, I only respond to Sundaime-sama and Danzo-sama. Your father has neither the authority nor the power to order me anything. I hope it is clear to you, because next time I will take it as you threatening a superior, and not even all the cashiers will be able to help you. Mito was going to speak, but he saw his mother telling him to leave him, and she remained silent. Sasuke was curious to know why he had offered Zabuza a deal, and decided to ask him. Sasuke, Akuma-sama, why did he offer Zabuza a deal? Akuma stared at Sasuke. The good impression that the boy had made on him during the fight with Zabuza had been reaffirmed in recent days since, while Asuna and Mito were lazing around the town and Sakura was reading books. The seduce his Sasukuna Lucci trained to the point of exhaustion, so contrary to his habit, he spoke with a kinder tone. Akuma, my last mission was to end the civil war in Kiri, now the new Mizukage is going to sign an alliance with us. Zabuza was acting like mercenary by order of the rebellion to get more resources. Now that the war is over, Zabuza has been acquitted and he is again a ninja from Kurigakura. If we kill one of his shinobi, the alliance did not occur. Sasuke had understood Akuma's reasons. It was pure politics, one more way to strengthen ties with Kiri. Just at that moment Zabuza arrived accompanied by Aku. Zabuza, it's time to come. Mason Akuma adjusted his cloak again and left there together with Zabuza. Zabuza guided him to the daimyo's castle. Once there Zabuza looked Akuma in astonishment and he had knocked on the door, so Zabuza looked around to see the dead sentinels. He didn't even see how Akuma did it. I'll take care of it. You follow me. Zabuza wasn't able to process what was happening. He had seen and caused many massacres throughout his life, but this was something else. He couldn't even see Akuma. The mercenaries were falling dead for no apparent reason before they realized they were in Kat's office, who looked terrified at the Konoha Anbu. When he saw Zabuza, his eyes showed a slight hope. Kat, Zabuza, defend me. But Zabuza didn't move, so Kat looked for other ways to get out of their life. Kat, tell me what you want, whatever, but let me live. Akuma smiled under his mask. Akuma, I want you to transfer half of your assets to Konoha and the other half to Kurigakura. Gato relaxed. It seemed like he would keep his life, but just after signing the papers, he was pierced by Akuma's katana. I only said what I wanted, not that he was going to spare your life, and without further ado, he left. From there, followed by a much admired Zabuza. 2 weeks later, Team 7 Sasuke and Akuma had stayed in Nami until the end of the bridge. In those days Akuma had trained Sasuke and had been filled with pride at seeing the best aspects of his brother. Itachi, while Kushina had lightly trained in his physical form, Mito, Sha and Sakura, on the other hand, Sasuke had trained brutally and mercilessly. But it had been worth it according to Akuma's estimates. Sasuke was prepared to be a jounin in terms of power, but he lacked experience. He had also signed a treaty with Mami no Kuni, whose new representative was Tazuna. The trip to Konoha had gone without a hitch, and now they were on their way to deliver their report. They entered Hokage's office where Minato Danzo was waiting for them, and Yusen Kushina delivered their report, where it did not mention with clarity the fight against Zabuza and did not even talk about the insubordination of his children. Yusen, thank you Kushina, now your report. Akuma submitted his report. He did not omit any part from the attempted abandonment of Asuna to the death of Gato, and the treaties with Kurenami passing of course, by the insubordination of Kushina. Mito and Asuna. Minato burst out with anger and reprimanded to the Linbu, unable to believe that his children were capable of such baseness. Minato, enough. Akuma, it is obvious that you are lying. Akuma was lynched by the anger and murderous instinct of the Namikaze. He simply raised his chakra, making the Namikaze's chakra look like that of a baby. Akuma, Sasuke is a witness of what I say. Minato looked at Lichia, who only nodded in confirmation. He was about to send them when Akuma spoke again. Akuma, I have one last request. Minato looked sharply at the Anbu. Akuma, I request the departure of Mito and Asuna in case from the program shinobi under charges of dereliction of duty, abandoned a leaf comrade, and threatened a superior. The room fell into absolute silence. Minato was aware that he should at least suspend them from active duty for a while, but he refused to make that decision. Then Dan intervened. Danzo, Minato calls the shinobi council. I have to submit something to a vote. Minato simply nodded, and just a few minutes later the council was meeting along with the members of the mission, who had also been summoned. Minato, sorry for summoning them so suddenly, but Danzo wants to submit something to the vote. Danzo, I will go straight to the point. I request that Article 155 of the Nidaime Law be applied. The murmurs were not long in coming, and that Article 155 converted Konoha's system of government from a dictatorship to a diarchy, holding for a time the title of Hokage Two-People Shikaku, under which charges Danzo favoritism and impartiality. Shikaku could specify Danzo-sama Danzo favoritism when forming teams by making a special team and removing Anbu Kakashi in order to increase the protection of his family. Impartiality by assigning the Anbu commander Rango's mission only because his family was involved in it, and again favoritism by not imposing any punishment on his sons guilty of abandoning a village comrade and using their position as sons of the Kage to threaten a superior and try to give him orders, in addition to having locked up his eldest son Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi and therefore a military asset of the village, without forgetting that he also sealed his chakra to prevent him from being a ninja. Minato was going to speak, but Yusen interrupted him. Yusen, do not try to use the pathetic excuse that because Naruto was spending time with his brothers, he was regaining his power as a shinobi that you should be aware that it is the soul that generates Chakra, so it is understandable that he had and could use his chakra. Minato remained silent, realizing about what a bad father and Hokage he was, and then he realized something else, that he did not remember his son's face, nor the last time he spoke to him. This put both him and Kushina Danzo on the verge of tears. He ignored it. His pain and Danzo continued, and to carry with Minato the title of Hokage, I propose, and Solovey votes in favor. The decision was unanimous, everyone in favor. Danzo concluded the meeting. Danzo, well, from now on, until a final resolution is reached on this matter, all decisions will have to be endorsed by both of them. The session adjourns. Minato went to his wife, who was crying openly, and gave her a hug. She calmed down a little. Minato, calm down, Kusen, I'm sure he can forgive us, and he stayed comforting his wife. Were so in their pain that they did not realize that there were still people in the room, each one reacted in a different way. Sasu could only feel disgust, and all the respect he felt for the Hokage vanished. Myth and Yusina did not know why. His parents were crying for that useless man. Besides, they considered that what the council had done was unforgivable. And finally, Akuma only had one hypocritical thought. Minato and Kushina were heading at full speed towards their residence after the meeting with the council, and that was that they had an objective to see their son Naruto and get his forgiveness. When they arrived home, they ran up the stairs until they reached the door of Naruto's room. They knocked on the door but received no answer. They tried calling him. Kushina, Naru, my son, come to dinner today. There is Tebain Raymond, but there was still no response. So they decided to go in. What they saw there was heartbreaking. The room was in a deplorable state, the paint on the walls was peeling, the only mat in the room was worm-eaten and covered in dust. It was obvious that no one had lived there for years, but that wasn't the most heartbreaking thing. And there were blood stains on the floor. This finally broke Kushina, who started crying. Kushina, because there is blood. Where is my baby, Minato? Or he was much better, but he consoled his wife and tried to think logically. Then it occurred to him that perhaps Naruto could have left a letter. They searched the room thoroughly but found nothing, this much to Minato, who thought that his son could have been kidnapped. With this in mind, he left Kushina in the care of Makoto and ordered all the Anbu of the village to look for Naruto. But they did not obey, and they knew that Akuma was Naruto Uzumaki, and after the latest events, they had more loyalty to their commander. And to the Sundai, may that Minato obey Minato now, but none of the Anbu. He moved from his position. Minato was about to attack his subordinates when they went to the office. Yusin, calm down, Minato. Minato, please calm down, my son has disappeared. Yusin, what happened to him? Asina, Minato, what is that? No, Naruto. Yusin, from what I know you don't have the right to call him son. Minato, calm down. Before answering the Sundai, may Minato, I know I have neglected him, but he is still my son. I am sure he will forgive me. And do you really think that you used it as an excuse not to attack your children, revealing to the people his status as a container of the Kyuubi's mind and sealing his shinobi abilities? This led him to suffer brutal beatings that left him on the verge of death. Then you locked him up for years, giving him the minimum to eat, which led him to escape to obtain more food and not die of hunger. Well, you consented to Asina and myth. He was leaving his soul in his training to prove that he was something more than the fox demon. Point, he finally escaped from that hell of a life of confinement, hunger and beatings, and you haven't given it until 8 years later. Now I'm seriously asking you again, do you think he'll forgive you? Minato stayed silent. And there was nothing he could say. Then he realized that Yusin, he said that he had run away from his life, but he seemed to know where Minato was. Yusin, you know where he is, please tell me where to find him. Yusin, where is he? But I can't, and I won't tell you anything. They were his wishes, and I plan to fulfill them. Yusin left there, leaving behind a very sad man. Minato. At the same time that this was happening in Konoha, Commander Yukuma was on a very complicated infiltration mission in Atogakure, a newly emerged village about which there were dark rumors. He had undertaken the mission alone and, disguised as a civilian, had been able to enter the village had undetected, recognized the village, planning various evacuation routes, and his next course of action, he discreetly entered an alley and put on his gear again and used a shun to infiltrate the Otkahe tower. Once there, he was avoiding to the sentinels and entered the archive room. He quickly began to review documents. What he saw horrified him. And the Atoka was Orochimaru, the deserted Sannin who, true to his principles, was experimenting on human beings, copied the most relevant documents and continued with the registration. He suddenly perceived the presence of someone who was about to enter the room. He quickly hid in a corner and suppressed his chakra. Moments later, a young man with glasses entered, carrying a box with files, but instead of arranging them on the shelves in the room, he went to a wall and activated a blood seal, making a hole appear in the wall where he left the box. Afterwards, the young man left. Akuma stopped hiding and proceeded to analyze the complex blood seal. It was a very complicated double matrix seal, which was only freed by using the blood of Orochimaru, and the young man with glasses. Akuma meditated on how to pass that almost insurmountable seal. And as the great master of seals who found a solution, he prepared to apply another seal on top of the one that already existed. What he intended was to linking the blood seal with a new one that responded to his chakra in order to have access to the documents not only now but also in the future. The work he was carrying out was extremely complex, any other seal master would have taken hours. But Akuma was the greatest Fui master in the world, only surpassed by the legendary Uzumaki myth, so he finished in a few minutes when he deactivated the seal. He reviewed the documents superficially to determine their importance, but there were too many to do it quickly, so he copied them all and saved them. Originals again. Then he left there and returned to Konoha. Once in the village, he went to his office and analyzed the newly obtained documents more deeply. What he saw surprised him, and it was that Orochimaru was planning a double operation. It seemed that he wanted to infiltrate the second part from the tuning exams to kidnap Uchiha Sasuke and invade Konoha during the final phase together with Suna. Akuma smiled under his mask. If he wants war, he will have war. He already had a plan, but for it to work, he had to use Sasuke Uchiha. With all this in mind, came out of there, and he went to the Hokage Tower. Once there, he called a meeting with the Shinobi Council, using his position as commander of the council, the Osas and Danzo. They didn't take long to arrive. Minato was visibly depressed and pale when he saw this. Yusin decided to take the meeting himself. Yusin, I'm not leaving to beat around the bush. We have been summoned by Commander Anbu to receive information of utmost importance. Proceeds Akuma. Akuma, thank you Sundaime-sama. I have gathered you to communicate certain discoveries that I have made in my infiltration in Otagakure. The first and most important is that the Otak is more nigh less than Orochimaru. The face at the meeting there was completely serious, and Orochimaru was without a doubt the strongest Sannin, probably reaching the SS rank, but Akuma had not finished. Akuma, that's not all. I have also found evidence that he is experimenting on humans to get stronger. Shinobi. The Shinobi Council was disgusted, but not surprised. At the end of the day, he was expelled from the village for carrying out those types of experiments. Akuma, there is one last point. It seems that Otagakure and Sunagakure will invade us. In the final phase of the tuning exam, Shinobi Council prepared for a long planning meeting time. Skipped 2 hours. Akuma was satisfied everything had gone just the way he wanted, but in order to execute the last part of the plan, he needed permission from the Sundaime. Akuma and Rinama, stay a second please. You and tell me. Akuma, in the files I got, it also indicated that they would try to kidnap Uchiha Sasuke in the second phase of the exams. I imagine that because of his Yusin Sharingan. Why haven't you communicated this to the Akuma Council? Because I think it is a great opportunity. As you already know, he planned to integrate Sasuke in the Anbu program after the Chunin exams. It could be his test. Yusin continues. Akuma, when Orochimaru goes for Sasuke, he will use one of my Listen Siemens to call me, so I can finish off the snake before it escapes you and use Sasuke as bait. Now I understand. If you say that Sasuke is one of Orochimaru's objectives, the Shinobi Council would not have let him participate. Akuma just nodded and waited the verdict of his superior. Yusin, as always. Akuma, you are one step ahead. Well, I authorize you to reveal the invasion to Sasuke Uchiha and carry out your plan. Akuma was about to leave there when Yusin spoke again. Yusin, by the way, Minato and Kushina are very depressed and sorry for how they treated you. Naruto, I think it's obvious my opinion about them. They are not my family, they are just a comrade of the Leaf, and the current Hokage would be lying if he said that he didn't despise them, but that comes more from his regrettable decisions regarding the Jinchuriki of the village and his clear favoritism towards his children above all else. Yusin did not insist anymore. He was very aware that the maximum that Naruto could get was to see them as mere acquaintances. It is worth saying that it already seemed to him much more than what that family deserved. Without a doubt, Naruto was above all a shinobi of the village, and if Naruto had even forgiven them, that point was because he knew that if he caused a conflict with that family, the village would be the biggest loser. Naruto saw that the Sundaime gave in and interpreted it as his permission to retire. After leaving for Kuma, he headed to the Uchiha complex. Once there, he knocked on the door. From the clan leader's house, Mikoto opened the door, who smiled. And although he did not know Anbu's identity, he was always very polite and correct with them. Besides, he had been Itachi's student. Akuma. Good evening, Koten. I'm sorry to interrupt your rest, but I need to talk to Itachi-sense and Sasuke-san. Mikoto, that's right, come in please. They are in the living room. Akuma nodded and went to where he had been told, while Mikoto returned to Kushina, who was passed out in the guest room due to the strong emotion she had experienced. Suffered today. Akuma entered the room. As soon as he did so, the eyes of the two Uchiha brothers focused on him. Sasuke bowed respectfully, and Itachi stood up and gave Kuma a hug. This surprised Sasuke, since his brother did not. He was expressive with his feelings, but for some reason it seemed that he was very related to the Anbu, and Itachi was especially happy and thought to find his pupil and best friend with Shisui to give them the big one, but he knew that first they should talk about Sasuke's role in the Akuma invasion. Sasuke-chiha, I have a proposal for you. Sasuke just stood up. Akuma, I propose you enter the Anbu program after the Chunin exam. Sasuke was very surprised, but he didn't hesitate for a moment. Sasuke accepted Akuma. He was pleased that Sasuke agreed to enter Anbu era. The vital importance. Akuma, well, but I have to entrust you with an unofficial mission. Sasuke knelt down as he had seen his brother do and waited. Akuma, during the exams, the traitor Sanin Orochimaru will try to kidnap you to obtain your Sharingan. For this reason I need you. When I go to Portic, I channel chakra to this seaman, so I will appear in your position and I will be able to kill him before he. Please. This is of vital importance since, apart from trying to kidnap you, he will invade the village during the third test, but if I kill him, the invasion will not happen. Sasuke perfectly understood the situation and his duty and would do it even if it cost him his life. Itachi, enough work. Akuma, I want you to take off your mask and have dinner with us. My girlfriend and Zumi and Shisui will also be there since I have to give you some great news. Uchiha's happy face was enormous and Akuma could not refuse the request. After all, everyone who was going to attend the dinner was Jounin except Sasuke, but he would enter Anbu in a short time. Akuma removed his mask, showing a weathered face. He looked older than his 15 years. Naruto, hello Sasuke, my real name is Naruto Maki, nice to meet you. Sasuke was very surprised. The most lethal shinobi in the village was a boy his own age, and for Masanar, he was the forgotten son of Hokage. He preferred not to do no comment. They waited a while until Fugaku arrived, Izumi and Shisui among them. Kushina went home without seeing Naruto. When those who were missing arrived, they started to eat dinner. It was the best dinner Naruto had ever had, and the atmosphere was familiar and affectionate. Something that he had never had was also something strange. And the normally imperturbable Itachi was very affectionate and with a face of great happiness. No one knew what was happening to him or what he had to announce. They had already finished dinner and were tasting some dessert. When Itachi finally spoke, Itachi, I know that all night you have been wondering what I have to announce. All the conversation stopped. Itachi, I have to tell you that my beautiful Izumi has accepted my marriage proposal. Everyone rushed over to the couple to congratulate them. Fugaku Tina had a slight smile, Sasuke was half paralyzed, still processing what was said, and Mikoto was crying with happiness. Naruto and Shisui were different, and as soon as their friend had finished his announcement they had already jumped on him to hug him, after choking him a little, and Shisui they both made fun of him. They sat back down in their seats. Naruto had a smile on his face, one of happiness, something that had not happened to him in years. He saw how Izumi approached to talk to him. Izumi, you know, Naruto, you should smile more, it suits you a lot. It would be better than that face that you make, Naruto. It's funny that you tell me that as your fiancé, the king of serious and imperturbable faces. Izumi let out a small laugh, and Naruto was right. Izumi, but he already has me while you have no one, or maybe I'm wrong. Naruto, I'm not romantically with anyone, however there is a woman. And Kiri, but it's just a wait event news. Izumi, and don't you think you should give love a chance? Naruto, my job is too important to distract me. Izumi, if you say so. By Anbu, Kakashi-san was also Anbu commander when he started dating Rin. Naruto, that's different, they were both Anbu and they had been friends for a long time. I have no friends other than Itachi, Shisui, Kakashi, Rin, and you period. Although more than friends you are like my older brothers. Izumi, I was very surprised, and she considered Naruto the little brother she never had, but she thought he didn't see it that way. Izumi, it's a pride that you consider me Two-in-chan or Tato. Naruto, you are my family. When the Hokage and his wife banished me from the Namikaze clan, you took me in and raised me. I will never be able to repay you for everything you have done for me. Izumi, you have nothing to thank. By the way, why do you only mention the Namikaze clan? Did they not banish you from both? Naruto, the Uzumaki clan is special, its strength lies in the family. By abandoning a member of the family, she stopped being the leader of the clan. That is why her chains are so weak. When you are the leader of the clan, your skills with the chains are much greater. On the other hand, when you are not, you have to train them. She had gotten used to the innate strength of his chains when he is a leader, but now that he is no longer a leader he needs to train. Izumi, that explains a lot of things. By the way, you know, it is only a matter of time before they know who you are. Naruto, there is no reason. Izumi, Naruto, don't try to convince yourself. At some point you will have to face your past, no matter how painful it is. Naruto, you are right, tomorrow I will do it. Now it is time to celebrate. And so he ended the conversation and started talking to Shisui, Naruto, Kakashi and Rin. They will be waiting for us. I think it is better let's go back home. Shisui didn't respond and he was drunk. Naruto sighed and said goodbye to the family and left there carrying Shisu. Naruto arrived at the house he shared with Kakashi, Shisu and Rin, and as he thought he found the Kakashi and Rin, they were waiting up when Rin saw what state Shisui was in. Kai kills him right there, but Kakashi convinced her to leave. Naruto went upstairs and left Shisui on his bed, then went down to the kitchen to make some tea. He was in the process when Rin came to talk to him. Rin, Shisui is an idiot. Look, drinking to that point makes me want to kill him. By the way, what did Itachi Naruto want? Nothing important. just that he got engaged to Izumi. Rin, like, nothing important. Naruto, shhhhh, don't scream that you're waking up Shisui. Naruto, you know it's not that, it's just that it's a little uncomfortable to listen to you at night. Rin turned red as a tomato and lightly slapped Naruto on the back, who was laughing as least loudly as he could. Rin suddenly turned red. You already know what you are going to do with him, Naruto. Yes, I can't run away from my past, sooner or later he will find out, it is inevitable, the only thing that will be unbearable is to endure his apologies, I neither need them nor want them. Rin, you already know that we will always be with you, Naruto, I thank you. Very much, you are my real family. Then Kakashi approached, who had heard everything from the door. Kakashi, don't doubt it for a moment, Naruto. Wow, don't you know that spying is very wrong? Kakashi, Imaxu, spying is one of my specialties. Naruto smiles at the response of the attack. Without a doubt they were his real family. Kakashi, well, Rin and I are going to sleep. He was leaving there when Naruto threw them some papers. Kakashi, what is this? Naruto, seals of silence. Kakashi gave him a knowing look and he left there. Naruto finished his tea and went to sleep. Tomorrow it would be a long day. The next day Naruto had woken up first thing in the morning and had patrolled the village defenses. Then he had headed to the Sundaime's office where he was now. Yusen, tell me, Akuma, what do you want to talk about? Akuma, Yusen-sama, you have kept my identity a secret and I will never be grateful enough, but we both know that it is a matter of time before they realize who I really am, so I am going to reveal who I am. I prefer that you know it on my terms. Yusen was surprised. Akuma, he was very cautious with his identity and he knew that the last thing he wanted was, I also want you to call Kakashi Shisui Itachi. Yumi, the latter surprised the old man Sarutobi a little, but he didn't ask for explanations, and they were very well in the Hokage tower in 1 hour time. Skip 1 hour. Those already mentioned were in the Hokage's office, along with Minato and Kushina. Minato, well, Yusen, why did you ask us to come here? Yusen, it was not me, but Akuma. All eyes were directed towards Linbu, his close people, with light smiles of encouragement, and the Yondaime and his wife with curiosity. Akuma prepared herself, and he was indifferent to their reaction. I just didn't want them to get too insistent. Akuma, when Hyuin-sama gave me command of Hanbur, you wanted to know my identity. I think the time has come. Minato, well, then everyone, the rest of us, leave us. He couldn't continue because Akuma interrupted him. Akuma, they are my family, they can stay since they already know who I am. Minato, very well, proceed. Akuma removed his mask, revealing his weathered face, his icy blue eyes, and his jet reddish blonde hair. Minato and Kushina were completely paralyzed. Their son, the one they despised and abandoned, was in front of them. They took some time to detail him, his birthmarks in the form of mustaches, his toned arms, the Anbu tattoo. Before them was their son, but he was no longer a child. But a man, a shinobi, a seasoned and experienced warrior. Minato and Kushina were already crying openly. Kushina threw herself towards Naruto to hug, but he dodged her. Naruto, before they say anything, I'm going to make things clear. Her voice was merciless, and her icy gaze. Naruto was not. I am your son, I am nothing of yours, except the Anbu commander of Konoha. They made it very clear when they banished me from the Namek clan. This broke the heart of the couple who were hoping to solve their mistakes with their son, Naruto. Furthermore, I have to communicate something to Kushina. Kushina opened the doors. Eyes, that was not expected. Naruto, I imagine that you know the rule of the Uzumaki clan. So you should know that from the moment you abandoned me, you stopped being the leader of the clan and went to the secondary branch, therefore I am the new leader. Calm down. I'm not going to expel you from the clan, but I need all the documents, jutsus and properties of the Kushina clan. She didn't really know how to feel, she was surprised and sad at the same time. And it hurt her to see the excellent man that Naruto had become without her help. Naruto, also that only you will be able to carry the Uzumaki surname, your children are excluded and expelled from the clan. This left the Retite confused because she forgave her and expelled her children. Naruto, if you wonder why I haven't done it to you, it's very simple, for political reasons. I need you. There are 2 members of the clan and I prefer that the other be you until I find between someone who is really worthy of belonging to the clan, because clearly you are not worthy. Kushina lowered her head again for a moment. She had thought that her son did not want to cut off all family relations, but she was wrong. At the same time, Minato was thinking of a way to get closer to Naruto. Suddenly he realized that he could put the Linbu on a Genin team. Minato, Akuma, you remain assigned to a Genin team until further orders. However, the reaction of those present in the room was not what he expected, and they started laughing. When they stopped the laughter, Yusen intervened. Yusen annulled his order. Kakashi, look, trying to get Naruto to leave Anu as a highly trained shinobi. An expert assassin and the most powerful ninja in the village, just seeing him with those little kids that he has for children, Sensei Itachi is amazing. Besides, you serve the village better from your position as Commander Anbu. Izumi again, I was trying to do what was most convenient for you above the well-being of the village. Shisui, I am glad that the Nidaime established Article 155, it is being very effective in stopping his ravings. Minato, he felt tremendously humiliated, they were making fun of him in his face. But if the Sundaime was on his side, he couldn't do anything. Naruto put his mask back on and addressed the Akuma present. Well, that's enough, Shisui. Itachi and Kakashi. I need you for a mission. Kakashi, it would be better if we talked about it somewhere else, and those mentioned left in a shunshin, while the others left through the door, leaving behind some disconsolate parents. Kushina is just as he says he doesn't consider us his family. Minato, calm down Kusage-chan, I think we must give him space. Kushina, I refuse. He is my baby, he is not going to go out on assassination missions. I forbid him. Minato, we cannot do anything, plus he has already carried out much more dangerous missions before. Kushina, I am going to make him come home as he should be. We are his family. Minato, he became serious. His wife was becoming obsessed with bringing Naruto back, and that was not good for anyone. Minato Kitchen. We cannot impose anything on him, we abandoned him, we have no right over him, and he does not consider us his family. It is best to leave him alone and not insist too much. Kushina remained silent, but she was not going to give up so easily. Minato also, I don't know if it is the best thing to say this to the children, we have spoiled them too much, it is time to really educate them. 7 Minato only received silence in response, with Kakashi, Akuma, Shisu and Itachi. Kashin, what is the mission? Akuma, Shisu, Kam, I imagine it will be difficult if you have called us Itachi. Karasu, it is the first mission we have done together in a long time. Akuma, in fact the mission itself is not complicated, the issue is that the objective is in a bunker almost impregnable, and we cannot enter by force, since it has to look like a natural death. Inu, how are we going to do it? Akuma took out the plans, and told them his plan. Aku and I and Inu took care of the detection seals. Karasu puts the genjutsu on the guard so that they do not interrupt us, and Kami uses his ability with Shunshin to enter without leaving a trace of chakra and eliminate the target. Everyone thought it was a good plan, and they prepared to execute it. The bunker was on the border with Suna, that's why Akuma needed to the others, and if he went alone, it would take him longer, and Suna shinobi would appear, and he would be forced to fight, which would ruin his plans to finish off Suna during the invasion, since if he stood up and killed them, they would declare war on them, and if he delivered would retain him or execute him. The mission was easier than planned. Karasu used a very powerful genjutsu that left the guards out of combat, while Inu and Akuma deactivated the detection seals, leaving the way clear for Shisui, who took care of the objective, making him suffer a cardiac arrest with a genjutsu, without leaving any evidence to prove Konoha's involvement. They left there. Akuma was happy with the result of the mission. But he knew that his next target was Orochimaru himself, and therefore he should be careful since it was another SS rank like him. It has been a month since the infiltration of Itagakure. The Chunin exams were about to begin. The different enseis were talking to their students about their nominations for the exams. Team Kurenai. Well, guys, I wanted to tell you that I have nominated you for the Chunin exams. I hope. Give your best and take care of each other. Yada. Kiba and Shino nodded decisively. Kiba, I have to honor my village and the clan. I will not lose. Nada, I am the heir of the Yuga clan. I cannot be defeated by the pride of the Yuga. I swear I will not lose. Shy, it's not time for everyone to see me. I will come out of the shadows and honor the Aburam. Kurenai was very proud of her team. Shin was not an example of what a silent and lethal shinobi was. Kiba had left his pride, and that is ahead of everything was his mission. With which he had the most doubts was with Hinata, and the Yuga heiress was as talented as she was proud, bordering on arrogance when she saw herself superior to others. It had been difficult, but more or less she had managed to get the Byakugan user to keep her pride in check. Team Assume the Sarutobi looked at his students, the perfect synchronization of the legendary Nino Shiko Ino training Yamanaka, the most talented Kinwaichi of her lethal generation with her mental transfer jutsus. Although somewhat obsessed with humiliating all those she considered unworthy of being Kinwaichi, Shikamaru was a genius strategist without equal. Their usual laziness completely disappeared when it came to fighting a great leader with the intelligence to lead a high-level squad. Chuya Kimmichi, a fat boy with great determination, was very talented with his clan's jutsus. A great shinobi. Asuma was very happy with his team, he was only worried that they were not ready to the invasion, and he knew very well what war was like. Team Gi the Noble. Beast of the Leaf had not allowed his students to participate the previous year, but now he did consider that they were prepared. Rogel, his great student, a genius of hard work, the greatest specialist in taijutsu in the world, only below himself a serious boy during duty, outgoing in the rest. Nair Yuga, the most talented in the history of the clan, he was not only the best user of the gentle fist in history, but he was also a great user of ninjutsu, is a firm believer that destiny is forged by your actions, contrasting with the beliefs of her cousin who believes that destiny is immutable. Tenten weapon specialist, a good Kinwaichi but too conventional to adapt to the constant changes of a battle. Ki smiled. Her team was ready. Team Kushina still believed that her children were the elite of the Genin elite and therefore capable of defeating even Hins. The one she had the most doubts about was Sakura, but as long as she was with her children, they would protect her. Although he tried to focus on his students, it was very difficult for him. And he feared that it could happen to Naruto. He had found his son only to find out that he was a shinobi recognized and feared in all the elemental nations, as well as an Anbu commander at a very young age. All of those achievements and feats should reassure her and make her proud, but nothing could be further from the truth. Her son despised her and did not consider her his mother, which hurt her. But what affected her most was knowing that she had never accompanied him, not even during her childhood. Hellish training neither in his first death nor in his study of Fuijitsu, nothing. When he found out that Naruto had left home many years ago, he realized something disturbing. He did not remember his son's face. He tried to look for a photo of him, but it didn't work when they revealed who he was. It was even worse because of all this. Kushina's analysis of his Gainans was terrible. Kakashi and Sasuke. Kakashi: well, Sasuke, remember your mission, you are going alone, so I hope you are careful as soon as you see him, tell Naruto. Sasuke nodded. His first mission as an Anbu, although it was unofficially, but he did not consider failure as an option. Kakashi now swears with me. Sasuke read the paper that Kakashi had given him. It was a different oath than the one his brother used. He almost saw his face of confusion and spoke. Kakashi-kuma, the oath has changed. The truth is this is much better. Good, let's begin. Kakashi and Sasuke: in times of war or uncertainty there is a special breed of warriors ready to answer the call of our village, an ordinary man with an uncommon desire to succeed forged by adversity. He stands alongside the best special operations forces in the world to serve his village and the people of Konohagakure and protect their way of life. I am that man. My mask is a symbol of honor and heritage given to me by the heroes who came before me. I embody the trust of those I have sworn to protect. By wearing the mask I accept responsibility for my chosen profession and way of life. It is a privilege I must earn each day. My loyalty to the village and the team is beyond reproach. I humbly serve as a guardian of my colleagues on the blade, always ready to defend those who cannot defend themselves. I do not advertise the nature of my work, nor I seek recognition for my actions. I voluntarily accept the dangers inherent to my profession, putting the well-being and safety of others first. Other than mine, I serve with honor on and off the battlefield. The ability to control my emotions and my actions, regardless of the circumstances, sets me apart from other men. Unwavering integrity is my standard, my character, and my honor are firm. My word is my bond. We hope to lead and be led. In the absence of orders I will take charge, lead my colleagues, and fulfill the mission I set an example in. All situations I will never give up, persevere, and I feed on adversity. My village hope that I am physically tougher and mentally stronger than my enemies. If they knock me down I will get back up. I will always take advantage of every ounce of strength that remains to protect my companions and fulfill our mission. I am never out of the fight. We demand discipline. We expect innovation. The lives of my companions and the success of our mission depend on me, on my technical ability, my tactical skill and attention to detail. My training is never complete. We train for war and fight to win. I am prepared to contribute everything the spectrum of combat power to achieve my mission and the objectives set by my village. The execution of my duties will be swift and violent when necessary, but guided by the same principles that I serve to defend. Brave men have fought and died building the proud tradition and the feared reputation that I am forced to maintain in the worst conditions. The legacy of my companions maintains my determination and silently guides each of my actions. I will continue my path with honor, living by the edge of the sword. With one blow I will separate heaven from earth, and I will do from day to night. Death passes the memory. No, I will not fail. Author's note: it is the oath of the Navy SEALs modified. Some parts are from the Special Naval Warfare Force of the Spanish Navy. Time skip one day. The day of the Chunin exams, the nervous Gainans had arrived. They had passed a tense written exam where the objective was to gather information. It could be said that Asina and Mito had been as arrogant as usual, being marked as a target by many of those present. Another one that had been marked was Hinata Yuga. And it is that as soon as he entered the room he had announced that his destiny as a Yuga was to win and that they were wasting their time trying to oppose destiny. Sasuke had received another type of attention, and that was that shortly before the exam, Raleigh had challenged him. Sasuke had refused the challenge, but he had said that it would be an honor to face him in the future. Neji had also been identified as one of the strongest Genin of his generation and a possible threat. Then there were the Genin of the Sand, and upon learning about the invasion, he had decided to keep an eye on them all. They were great shinobi. It was obvious that they were very talented, but especially the Redeed with the pumpkin emitted a great killer instinct. The Genin had grouped together when a boy older than them appeared offering information about any Genin. This put Sasuke on alert since he was very stranger. After getting information from the Sand Ninja, dragged him outside where he called Akuma through the seaman Irison and told him his suspicions. Akuma recognized him as the boy he saw in Atagakure and took him for interrogation and torture. Different teams and Sasuke were about to start the second test. The person in charge was a sadistic Jounin in Anbu. Thus, the test consisted of a survival combat in the forest of death. The objective was to have the two scrolls of heaven and earth and take them to the tower. Gave the starting signal and Sasuke entered the forest at high speed. Suddenly, they threw a kuna at him and he stopped without problems. I hoped it was Orochimaru, but they were just some Takiganins. They thought that Sasuke, being alone, would be easy to defeat, poor naive people. It didn't take Sasuke even 5 minutes to finish them off, and his scroll, which fortunately was from the earth, was just the one he was missing. Sasuke began to advance towards the tower without any rush. He had to attract Orochimaru towards him, so there was no point in increasing the speed. Orochimaru's point of view: where has that brat gone? I can't take too long. If that Kuma guy shows up, I'll be in trouble. There he is. There he was, my next vulnerable body. I attacked the Uchiha. He dodged without much problem. My Hatsunda was perfect. His skill was much more skilled than I thought. Sasuke, you're not fooling me. Orochimaru, Kukuku. I didn't expect you to be waiting for me. You can't beat me. Sasuke, I don't. But he did immediately after he threw me a Zon. And Orochimaru's point of view: after Sasuke threw the Zon Anbu that Orochimaru recognized perfectly. Orochimaru prepared for a fight. Akuma, well done Sasuke. Sasuke left the place heading towards the tower. Akuma stared at Orochimaru, then disappeared in a burst of speed, and then launched a blow that Orochimaru managed to block. They began a great taijutsu dual fist against snake fist, power and speed against flexibility and precision. The blows were devastating, they resonated throughout the forest, leaving destroyed trees behind him. Orochimaru, seeing that if he continued like this, he would lose, he regurgitated himself and then started a ninjutsu battle where Akuma used his exception handling over the wind element to repel his attacks. Akuma decided to switch to attack, and although he had the advantage of the combat, he was being very hard. Akuma used his own element which he had created from the artificial then product of his magnificent control over Kate Knife and then Raiden Akuma element Thunder, destroyer of worlds. A great wave of energy was towards Orochimaru, destroying everything in his path at an atomic level. Orochimaru used his defensive jutsu Knives S Rashim, but it only gave him a few seconds, enough to replace himself and avoid certain death. Akuma, he did not despair and threw thousands of Siemens using the Kaj Yunin 2. Then he began to teleport everywhere, starting to hit the deserting Sannin. Akuma appeared further away and launched a final standard teleportation signal. Before he hit the ground with his katana drawn, he was centimeters away from piercing Orochimaru's head, but he reacted in time. And invoking a snake, he deflected the katana, causing it to stick into his shoulder. He took advantage of that moment to grab Akuma. Akuma was not surprised by the Sannin's reaction speed, he was prepared for it, so he began to form a Rasengan. In the other hand, Orochimaru, he was in trouble, but he came up with a plan. The Sannin regurgitated Kusanagi. Akuma saw him by the hair, throwing his head back. He avoided a fatal wound, but left a scar over his right eye. Great, I'm immune to poison, and I'm not going to lose my eye. The only bad thing is that I'm going to be left with a scar. I know what I needed to look like. Kakashi. He jumped away from Orochimaru, breaking the grip. The battle had been hard, but he was much better than Orochimaru. The deserting Sannin had many wounds, one of great severity in his chest. The shoulder and his chakra were almost exhausted, he could not regurgitate, and he was visibly tired. Akuma prepared to deliver the final blow, but when he approached Orochimaru to finish him off, the Sannin disappeared. Akuma reverse summoning. The Yu wiped his katana on his cloak and disappeared from there using his anger. No jutsu teleported to the gate of the Forest of Death, where a beautiful and sadistic Jounin Akuma was waiting for him. I'm sorry Anko, that pig ran away when I was going to finish him off. The Jounin was not surprised, maybe a little disappointed, but she more than anyone knew. Erzo was the traitor Sannin, his eyes focused on some more mundane things, and the fact is that Akuma was with a large part of his chest exposed due to the tears that his clothes had suffered during the fight. He continued detailing the Anbu. He stopped for a moment on the wound that he had suffered. It was visible through the cut in the mask, but he didn't worry. After all, as a former Anbu, he knew Akuma's identity. By the way, you shouldn't be in the tower waiting. Anko seductively approached the man and whispered to him in the ear in an insinuating way. Anko, the test ends in 4 days. What do you say we take advantage of the time? Mustaches. Akuma smiled under the mask. Sex with a Jounin was always magnificent. Akuma, 4 days. Sounds good. Chapter 15. Worthy. Akuma was in the sand. He was in below the central tower of the Forest of Death. I was there for 2 reasons. The first and most important was to ensure the safety of the Sundaime, and the second was to discover new possibilities. Anbu observed with a slight smile under the Anko mask. And the days with the lover of the snakes had been more than pleasant. Akuma shook his head slightly. He was an Anbu from mission. He couldn't be distracted by such vulgar things. His stomach turned when the Yondaime Hokage entered. That man was unworthy of his title. He felt like murdering him right there, but he restrained himself and stood next to the Sundaime. Shortly after, the Genin arrived. His sensory ability was magnificent, one of the most refined in history, being able to notice even the feelings of others, and he noticed something repulsive. It was lust, but the serious thing was who it belonged to. That feeling, and they belonged to a scene and myth that they stared at each other. In fact, the 2 brothers had thought that only they were worthy of being each other's partner and had given themselves over to disgusting lust. He focused his ability elsewhere to stop his urge to vomit by focusing on the Ganon of the Sand Village, and he noticed that the redeed with the pumpkin had 2 chakra inside him. So that's Ichibi's unstable Jinchuriki. Sasuke had already told him about the boy's disturbing aura. What it was not difficult for him to deduce was that he could not continue with his analysis because the Yondaime began his long and boring speech while the blonde Hokage spoke about the true meaning of the tuning exams. Naruto noticed how the Hings and Six were staring at him. And the thing is that the Uzum he was already a legend of the village. The Kuma called 5 of his Angus and ordered them to stay with the Sundaime, and he headed towards where the Jounins were in 6. Everyone except Kakashi and Yasuma became slightly nervous. The aura of power that he emanated was very intimidating. When he arrived next to them, the first fight was announced and the rest of Genin went up to the stands. Sasuke, Uchiha and Yoro and a cat stayed in the arena. At first it seemed that Sasuke would lose due to Yoroi's chakra absorption ability. But Uchiha here recovered and defeated him very easily. Akuma, I see that I did well to leave him in your hands. Kakashi-san, Kakashi is a good student, although worse than you. I doubt that I have ever trained someone as talented and committed as you. Those present there were surprised by the close relationship that Kakashi and the Anbu seemed to have. Akuma, he is definitely worthy. Kulina, curious. Decided to intervene. Kulina, worthy of that. Akuma-sama, Akuma, worthy of maintaining the proud tradition and feared reputation of the body, worthy of the mask, worthy of Anbu. The silence, the stands fell, and the fact is that all the Jounin knew what it meant for Akuma to recognize someone, but Asuna was angry now that he knew that Anbu was his useless brother. He wasn't going to stay silent like that. How solemn you become, as if it were difficult to belong to those useless people. When he finished speaking, his mother hit him on the head. She wanted Naruto to return to the family, and the attitude of her other 2 children did not help at all. The Kuma ignored him and focused on the combat that took place in the arena. Where's Akuabumi, ninja of sound? He had been completely defeated by Shinu Aburam Torin. You should be proud of him, he is a great ninja. Well, he remembered his comrade in arms who had fallen in the arena. The puppeteer of Suna Kankura easily beats his opponent. He is not bad, but he is still not close to the level of Chiyo. Far from Sasori's, the screen turned again showing the names of Ino Yamanaka and Mito Namikaze. The latter smiled arrogantly, thinking that she would win easily. Nothing could be further from the truth. She was defeated by Ino, who only made a Bunin that she used to distract her. Appearing in a Shunin behind the Namek and using his mind transfer jutsu to make her surrender. Akuma, you have a good disciple. Asuma, maybe he will recommend her for him. Asuma nodded approvingly. Asuna was just starting one. Asuna, she is 2 or couldn't continue because Akuma looked at him coldly in Akuma's eyes. I don't think I need to make our relationship clear again. Kushina didn't want this, she wanted her sweet baby back home. Kushina, come on, don't go too far, son. He couldn't finish either, since Amma was behind him with a kunai in his hand. Akuma Nek, our only relationship is that of clan head and clan member. You understood the tone. It was terrifyingly cold. Kushina was very scared. Kushina by the Jounin present there did not know what to think, so they chose to remain silent, but in reality they were analyzing the conversation in an attempt to discover the identity of Linbu. In the arena she faced the Tamari of the arena and Tenten. The weapon specialist was humiliated by the blonde who used her Tomjutsus to make all the brunette Akumgi's attacks useless. You should work on your taijutsu and speed so that if he faces a rival with these characteristics, Guy can face him. That's what we were in, but we didn't have time. Another confrontation was going to take place, and this one did have Akuma's absolute attention. And one of the participants before, he was Shikamaru Nara, a strategist of unparalleled talent whom he considered a possible Anbu captain in the future. Nara did not disappoint him. The battle was impressive for those who really knew what it was to be a shinobi. His opponent, a Kunoichi of sound, was also a great strategist, and it seemed that the battle would be his. Akuma has him right where he wants Karina, and that girl is a good strategist. Akuma, I was talking about the Nara, and indeed moments later Shikamaru turned the situation around. He won the fight. Akuma was satisfied. He already had another Akuma. He is also worthy. You have done an excellent job, Asuma-san. Asuma nodded with gratitude, and he knew the Commander Anbu never flattered in vain. A shout of excitement echoed in the stands. The cause Asuna, who would finally fight his rival Kiba, simply went down to the arena. The fight began with Asuna making several shadow clones that rushed towards the Inuzuka. The brown-haired man quickly vanished them, knowing that the original was planning something, and so it was. Asuna launched herself towards him with a Rasengan in her hand, but Kiba saw it coming. And he dodged it. Akuma, Asuna is not worthy of using that jutsu. Kushina, even though she didn't want to push the Anbu further away from her, she couldn't let him offend her son Kushina. Like that. Why is the jutsu a creation of her father? Akuma, I think you know about who is that jutsu. Really, don't take me for stupid, can I? Maybe that jutsu wasn't created by the Yondaime. Akuma, that's what he has made everyone believe, but in reality it is a jutsu that the Nidaime created. The Hunin didn't know who to believe, and despite his recent mistakes, the Namikaze was highly respected in the Kiva arena. He had gotten tired of being on the defensive and had used his Gatsuga technique with his dog Akamaru to attack the Namikaze, who could barely avoid the continuous attacks. Then something occurred to him, the Namikaze prepared another Rasengan, and in the next attack he hit him against the Kiba's technique. He smiled widely when he saw how Kiba went back and hit the wall hard. Asina, he doesn't get up anymore, this is over. But when he said this, the Kiba, who was unconscious, exploded into smoke, showing everyone that he was actually a Kajbunin Asina. How can he use that technique in the stands? Akuma was not at all surprised. Akuma makes sense. The Inyazuka clan specializes in tracking and exploration. They use the Kajbunin a lot in their missions. I suppose Tumor Anna must have taught it to him in the arena. His stupor, which Kiva took advantage of, who came out of the ground just below the Namek to give him a strong kick upwards when Asina was in the air. Kiba and Akamaru performed their technique again, and this time they hit Asina directly, leaving him out of action on the stands. Jounin were surprised, and the fact is that no matter how arrogant Asa was, no one saved cool, and Akuma and Kakashi expected that he was going to lose against Kiba. Akuma, you have raised a great child, he is capable of keeping calm and the wild instincts of the Inyazuka under control. He devised a good strategy and saved most of her techniques for the final phase. Kurenai was quite surprised and proud. With Linbu's compliments, the panel turned and showed only one man. Nair Yuga find out that they are odd. Nair Yuga advances directly to the final phase. The panel he turned again and showed two names, Inada Yuga against Sakura Runo Akuma. This fight has already been decided as if it were a premonition. As soon as the fight started, the Yuga closed several chakra points, making the fangirl faint. There was a common thought among all the spectators: pathetic. Once again, two names appeared on the screen, pointing to the next ones to fight: Rogel versus Abaku no Ara. Akuma, he moved for the first time from the wall on which he was leaning and approached the railing. That fight was without a doubt the most attractive of all that could have been given. After a long wait prepares him to fight Gaara. At first, it seemed that Lee's strong taijutsu would be useless, thanks to the sand shield, a wall of sand that automatically rises to protect Gaara, regardless of his will. Gi Lee Ku fabrics Lee, but Gi Sensei Gu, this is a special occasion. When Lee took them from Kuma, he smiled at wide, and seeing how extremely heavy they were, he increases his speed to one that allows him to move even faster than before, and ultimately surpassing the speed of the sand. After a few attacks, Lee attempted his primary lotus against Gaara. Lee's attack failed as his target was a hollow sand clone in the shape of Gaara. It reappears and hits him, who now he is weaker due to the use of the primary lotus. Lee quickly recovers from this disadvantage by demonstrating his ability to open the second door. He then manages to open the third and fourth doors. Akuma is definitely the most worthy shinobi I have ever seen, thinking he is capable of do this without having any talent. You are a great master. Girogel's speed was too much for Gaara, and his sand was no longer capable of forming a shield fast enough to be useful to him. Lee opened the fifth gate and used his most powerful attack, the lotus. Unfortunately, Gaara survived this final blow because he was able to turn his pumpkin into sand. Gaara on the ground was going to use his sand to crush his left arm and leg. But this did not happen. And Akuma was in front of him. He, and with an outstretched hand, had raised a wall of air that Gaara's sand could not penetrate. Everyone was amazed at Linbu's power, but even more so were the Jounin, who had not been able to see when he left the stands and went down to the arena. Akuma 10, be careful one, you don't want to see me furious. Gaara, so you are 9, your blood will prove my existence. The Genin did not know what was happening, but the Hunin opened their eyes in surprise. They would never have imagined that the powerful Anbu Kuma was nothing more and nothing less than the sun-abandoned Hokage, whom the Yondai may call the reincarnation of the Kyuubi. It is worth saying that many looked at their Hokage and Asuna with great disappointment and anger. The atmosphere was tense with the murderous intent of both shinobis in the air. Akuma increased his own, making Gaara seem insignificant and making everyone fall to the ground. After the increase in pressure, suddenly Akuma stopped emitting his killer instinct and knelt next to Lee. Akuma, you are incredible. You are proof that willpower is the greatest weapon of a shinobi. Now let me try something. Somewhat confused but visibly happy, he nodded. Akuma took out a sealing roll and from there he took out a brush and ink, then he began to draw kanji carefully. Then Akuma spoke, it seems that he will use Fuinjutsu Yamaki Chakra Rebirth. Everything shone for a moment and then the boy began to scream in pain, but no one dared to interrupt the Anbu. After a few minutes of agony, Lee fainted. Akuma, take him to the infirmary, he needs to rest. Gi, what has he done to Lee? Akuma, I have destroyed his chakra network and generated a new one, which I have injected part of my chakra to be reasonably developed. It will be very difficult at first. But he will be able to use chakra, and even ninjutsu. Gi started to cry and he knew how he had suffered, and despite never complaining and always saying that taijutsu, it was the only thing he needed. It was obvious that he would like to be able to shape chakra and do ninjutsu Akuma. Now we should clear the arena. There is still one fight left. Everyone came out of their stupor and cleared the arena, but there was a certain Jounin from the arena who was very nervous. Baki that Akuma is ridiculously strong, prepared to fight only with his killer instinct. The last fight was not a big deal. A sound ninja 2 Kanuta used his special bracelet to generate sound waves that affected Chuya, Kim Michi, who fell, defeated, be well. Pairings for the final will be decided randomly. The screen rotated defining each confrontation. Neher Yuga vs Anata Yuga, Sasuke Chiha vs Sabaku Nora, No Yamanaka vs Kiba, Inuzuka Shikamaru vs Sabaku, Not Teamer and Shino Aburam vs Sabaku, No Kanter. Find the final will be in an inverti month, that time in what you consider appropriate. Akuma, a new nickname was given to Anbu. From that day he would be known as Rage and God of Thunder. Akuma cleaned his katana and stood next to Inu. Just then Minato arrived next to Huin, and Kushina the woman tried to hug Anbu, but Inu stopped him. Akuma, exhausted and without chakra but still conscious, fell on his knees to the ground. Inu picked him up in his arms and took him to the hospital. When they laid him down on one of the hospital beds, he simply let himself be carried away. Chapter 19. The help Senju had one day after the joint invasion of Atagakure and Sunagakure to the Leaf Village. The massacre and incredible demonstration of power that had been shown to Kuma had surprised and shocked the shinobi world. His increase in rank in the bingo book had added several new ones. Nicknames that struck terror into the hearts of the blade's enemies. The Akuma Shin was no longer now also known as Rhino, the blood flash of the blade. His experience, power and youth was something that had not been seen since the time of the clan wars. However, such a formidable shinobi could not come out of unconsciousness. This had greatly worried all the inhabitants of the village, who were very worried about the man who had saved them. Jiraiya had gone out urgently in search of his former companion, Tsunade, the best medical ninja in the world. Since if anyone could wake the Anbu from its lethargy, it was her. The only thing the doctors had recommended was rest and tranquility, since they did not know why the Anbu was in a coma. Although in the hospital room where the Akuma was there was nothing like that. The recommended calm, and the fact is that despite the formidable guard that was in the Anbu commander's room to avoid inconveniences, a furious woman had passed among the astonished Anbu. Kushina. I'm going to see my son, I'm his mother and he needs me, the screams echoed throughout the plant, but the Anbu did not give their arm to twist. Rayon, I'm sorry, but you cannot pass instructions from Captain Kushina. And who is that captain? An Anbu with an unmistakable dog mask and silver hair that seemed to defy gravity intervened in Rayon. Leave, I'll take care of it. The Anbu with the lion mask obeyed his superior. Leaving the recently nicknamed Naim Shiro and Kiba was left alone with the Redeed Jin, who glared at him. Kushina, who gave those orders? I'm his mother and I'm going to seeing him. Kakashi remained unfazed and removed his mask. Kakashi, yo Kushina, are you going to let me pass now? Kakashi, no Kushina, and why not? Kakashi, I'm just doing what Kuma would like to be able to. Clearly a visit from you would not be well received. Kushina's hair began to rise, forming 9 furious tails, as if she were still Kyuubi's Jinchuriki. At the same time, a pair of golden chains rose furiously behind her back. Kushina, are you going to let me pass by hook or by crook? Kakashi formed his hand Hachidori, but this one sounded higher pitched and was black and purple. The famous shinobi had increased his level again, now classified as an SS Kakashi. I don't want to do this, Kushina. If I do I will kill you and destroy half a hospital. I almost didn't want to use so powerful technique in a fellow member of the Blade, but the loyalty he had to his former student and the current superior was absolute, and he knew that he never wanted a visit from the egg donor. The tension could be cut with a knife, neither of them willing to give in. Luckily, someone appeared in the hallway, diverting his attention completely. Tsunade walked steadily through the hallway. She walked through the hospital hallway followed by Jiraiya. She had decided to help the boy out of respect for the war feats he had performed. And the Anbu was already considered a legend. Tsunade quickly moved away. Kakashi left the door and let the Senju enter the room moments later. Jiraiya entered, followed by Kakashi, who was focused on seeing the reactions of the experienced doctor, trying to deduce the condition of his former student, and his little brother did not see how Kushina slipped through the door, although he stayed away so as not to give away his presence. When the Sannin saw him, she was surprised. Only a child. Tsunade did a quick scan of the boy's chakra. She already knew from the medical reports that it was not physical damage that kept him in bed. When she finished, she felt like crying with happiness. The boy was fine, he just needed rest. But what excited her was noticing that very familiar chakra that only his great uncle had. Aburama was also surprised by the high percentage of Uzumaki chakra that the boy had. So he concluded that he must be Kushina's son, but if that was the case, why hadn't they told him anything in theory? She was going to be the godmother of the children, then she remembered that one of those children had been locked up for posing a danger. It is worth saying that the Senju was very angry. The boy was a monster, but only in terms of ninja skills, otherwise he was very human. She applied a little of healing chakra on the forehead of the boy who began to wake up. The boy sat up and looked at her gratefully. Naruto, I imagine that it was you who woke me up. Thank you Tsunade-sama. The senju restrained herself. She wanted to hug him, but first she wanted to know if he knew if they were related and to get to know him better. The Anbu got up and changed into the Anbu pants that he was wearing under his armor. He was going to put on his shirt, but a scream of horror made him turn around in surprise. A jerk and everything became blurry. He didn't know how much time had passed, but he had woken up in the old flooded sewer. That was his mental space. The first thing that occurred to him was that maybe the Kyuubi wanted to talk to him about something, so he followed the trail of chakra until we reached the large cage that contained the Biju. Naruto. You brought me here Kyuubi, this time not a puppy. It was here he had noticed some respect and affection in the voice of the fox. A voice took him out of his thoughts. It came from a supported shadow on one of the walls. Hello, so your real name is Naruto? The stranger advanced and showed himself. As soon as he saw who it was, he put himself in a position to receive orders. The man who was in his subconscious was Tobirama Senju. Naruto and Dame Sama. How are you here Tobirama? You see, during our fight, I could sense that you were a Senju, but not only that, but also your chakra was extremely similar to mine, just as powerful and indomitable, so I left part of my residual chakra in your seal, so I could talk calmly with you later. Naruto was amazed. He knew that the NN Dame was a great censor and a great master of seals, but that surpassed everything he knew. Naruto, excuse me Nadame Sama, could you clarify for me about our chakras being similar? Tobirama, a while ago, shortly before my death, I had a brief relationship with a woman. Her name was Lina Mikak, blonde, and with captivating blue eyes. Although she was not from a shinobi clan, she belonged to an important commercial guild. I met her one day when she was negotiating with her father an agreement on the sale of wheat. In the second, I was captivated by her. Then you can imagine what happened. She became pregnant and unfortunately her only father died in childbirth. He considered the child an abomination and left him in an orphanage. There was bitterness in her voice. Tobirama, when I found out, I was already at the front. That he is cared for with care and that in case I die he would be given enough to live comfortably. In addition to having a place at the academy, the girl wanted to return and take care of him, but as Hokage I could not allow one of my subordinates acted as bait when the gold and silver brothers cornered us, so I confronted them. I managed to kill them, as well as 10 rank that accompanied them, but my wounds were too serious, and I ended up dead. The silence was established in the gloomy sewer, was again Tobirama, who spoke. Tobirama, the boy's name was Minato. Naruto was trying to process everything that the Senju had told him. In the end he managed to ask Naruto, are you my grandfather? No, it can't fit with my Senju part, but I'm also part Uchiha, and Minato is the only one that can be an Uchiha, since Kushina is in Uzumaki. Tobir love, I'm completely sure that the Uchiha blood comes from your mother. Naruto, Dame Sama, thank you very much for this, but it must be a mistake. Naruto couldn't believe that the shinobi he most admired in all of history was his grandfather. Tobirama, of course not. It's a mistake. By the way, the chakra is running out, so before I leave I will awaken your Gen Senju. I know that they removed the seal that contained them, but they had not yet been stimulated correctly. Who knows, maybe you will awaken an affinity to water similar to the mine. Good luck my grandson. Then Tobirama began to glow and disappeared. Moments later, Naruto began to notice an almost unbearable pain. It seemed that the pain would never end, but it didn't. After a while, that he couldn't determine, the pain stopped. He got up with difficulty, but suddenly he felt much better, stronger. He looked for a few seconds in the reflection of the water. His new appearance. Kyuubi suits you, puppy. Naruto, thank you Kyuubi. Kyuubi Kurama. Naruto, sorry Kyuubi Kurama, that's my name. You've earned my respect boy. Now I can see that you don't need my power. I'm just asking you for something. Naruto, whatever it is Kurama. I could swear that I had seen a slight smile on the fox. Kurama, from time to time come see me. We don't need to talk alone, I don't want to feel so alone. It's kind of depressing. Naruto noticed in Kurama's voice longing and bitterness. There he realized how wrong those were, who proclaimed that the Biju were beings full of hatred and evil without any reasoning. Naruto counts on it. Kurama. Naruto was going to leave, but he had an inspiration. He concentrated and began to change his mental landscape. It transformed into a beautiful lake at the foot of a forest with some mountains in the distance and filled it with fauna and vegetation. Finally, it changed the bars that imprisoned the Kyuubi for Akalas with the Kaji for Kurama. He saw him grateful and somewhat surprised. Kurama, I don't want to be ungrateful, but why did you do it? Naruto smiled at the ancient Biju. Naruto, I imagine you would want a larger and more beautiful place. You have been locked up in truly horrible prisons for a long time at the mercy of men's power games, although it is still a prison. I hope you find it more pleasant. Naruto noticed a tug and knew that he was waking up. Naruto, I have to go, goodbye Kurama, and he faded. The way Kurama, you really are different puppy. I will watch you with interest. Perhaps you are the one that was announced millennia ago. Unknown place. Ringed eyes shone in the dim darkness, looking at a shadow that was in front of him. Good job Kabuto, it was a good idea to confront Orochimaru with a blade. Now we have freed ourselves from him, we have weakened a military power, and we have the secrets of The edit tense and more Orochimaru's investigations were a risky thing, your escape from the prison of K, but as you thought the confusion during the invasion helped, now we will wait soon, the Kabuto hunt will begin, if leader Sama the joint invasion of the Anbu left in a shunin, leaving behind a little Aito with a smile on his face and in his eyes lost, while he unconsciously caressed the same spot. But he had kissed Kuma, the day had arrived after almost 8 months of hard negotiations, the cashiers of the 5 great ninja villages had reached a reasonable status, without a doubt, the most harmed was that they had risked almost everything. Their military strength in the failed invasion of Konoha, their military weakness, had meant that they could not take advantage of the summit. Of course, thanks to the great management of Baki, but especially of Garasuna, they had managed to maintain their status as one of the great ninja villages, and maintaining his weak alliance with a leaf was not much, but due to the circumstances of his village, Baki and Gaara considered it a great victory. Wagakure had also come out. Ada had to cede part of her territories to the leaf as well as they would have to pay immense amounts of money in war reparations. Inoki was furious, but he was also aware that he had managed to contain part of the damage. Kiri had indirectly benefited from the invasion of Suwa. Konoha. Kiri was very weak after the civil war, but the drain on resources what it meant. The defeat of Suwa Iwa had elevated it to the category of third continental power. In addition, they had recovered Utakata Jinchuriki from the Rakubi. Meiturumi was more than satisfied. Kumo was the same as before the summit, they had reaffirmed their alliance with the leaf, the only lament of the Raikage was not having been able to surpass Konoha as the greatest power of the ninja villages. Although taking into account that they were strong allies of the leaf, it was not too important either, but the one that had undoubtedly won was Konoha, which had reaffirmed itself as the first military power of the continent, something that a few months ago seemed impossible due to the low quality of the new shinobi that graduated from the Konoha Academy. Remains it was based on 2 things. The fear of his war veterans and feared prodigies Shisui Itachi Kakashi, the respect garnered by his victory in the last war, but Akuma had changed the panorama now. Adding to the 2 previous factors was that they possessed the only ninja rank SSS affiliated with one of the great ninja villages, that shinobi alone had defeated an entire invading army and isolated the feared veterans of Iwa. Thanks to this, Konoha had obtained large territories and concessions from Iwa Yuna and reaffirmed its alliance with Kumo and Kiri. Without a doubt, it was a great political victory for the Blade, specifically Duin, who had been the one who had taken the lead in the delegation from the Country of Fire, and as a grand culmination, a pairs tournament was going to be held between some of the most powerful ninja from each village. Akuma had been excited for some time since the invasion that he had not fought. Seriously, it is true that he had had some sparring matches with Yujito and occasionally with his partner Killer Bee, but they were pure taijutsu combats in which they did not show their full skills. Or Yujito. That name made him smile. After so many months of seeing the Kunoichi every day, he could say that she had become someone very important to him. Not only had they trained, but since their first date they had gone to dinner together on several occasions. The complicity between them was total, and although they had to be careful with what they said regarding their villages, they both deeply trusted each other. Naruto loved her, he was sure of it. He had been with several women and had had a couple of serious relationships, but in none of them had he felt what he felt. He felt towards the blonde. Despite this, he had not yet dared to kiss her because I have annihilated entire armies. Besides, it's not like he was in inexperienced puberty, he told himself, but he really knew what prevented him from declaring his feelings. Fear. He had faced several armies, a perfect Jinchuriki, a deranged Biju and 1,000 more battles. He was capable of dying without hesitation for his village, for his country, for his Hokage. But the idea of not being reciprocated by the woman he loved was terrifying to him. Akuma shook his head, those were thoughts for another time, now he was not a man, but the demon shinobi had a difficult fight to fight in the stands. The stadium was packed. Thousands of people crowded the stands with expectation. The public had welcomed the announcement with great enthusiasm. Of the tournament, the Chunin exams were a great event, but seeing from the safety of a seat combat some of the most powerful shinobi on the planet was a unique opportunity. The authorities' box in a secluded box and with a privileged view of the arena were the kages of the 5 great ninja villages, along with the daimyo of their respective countries. It is worth saying that the atmosphere was not exactly friendly. Noki and the daimyo of the country of Earth were clearly enraged. If it were not for the fact that they were in neutral territory, that Tsuchikage himself would have attacked against Minato and Yusen. Even so, the old leader of Iwa fully trusted in the ability of his 2 Jinchuricus Onirasi to win the tournament and thus recover a little of the lost reputation. Especially if one of the 2 defeated Akuma. Meiturumi was radiant. A few days ago she had spoken personally with Akuma and he had explained to her why he had not accepted the marriage with her. At first the rejection had hurt her, but what Akuma told her afterwards had made her extremely happy. Mei was not naive, she knew perfectly well that she loved Linbu, but believed that what she felt for him was the closest to what she felt with Zabuza and her had dated briefly at the beginning of the rebellion, but after an argument Zabuza had left to get money for the rebellion, when the swordsman returned, she believed she could rebuild their relationship. However, the Mamachi had been avoiding her. He only treated her as a Mizukage and nothing more. However, now and thanks to Akuma, she knew that Zabuza ignored her because he believed he was not enough for her. Now that he had assumed the mantle from Mizukage, that idiot, when he returns to Kiri, I will get that nonsense out of his head, she thought to herself. Irekage was also thinking about things very different from the tournament. He was thinking about Nayujido, the Nibi Jinchuriki. He considered the girl as his own daughter. That's why. He was worried about his affection for Akuma. They could call him just a mass of muscles, but he was much more perceptive than he let on. He was perfectly aware of the relationship that Yujido had with Anbu. The girl loved him. He was sure of that. He himself was terrified that the Anbu was only playing with his daughter's heart. Focus, be positive. If Akuma's feelings are really sincere, you will be able to further strengthen the alliance with the Leaf, the Reikage. He thought, almost more convincing himself than anything else. On the other hand, Gaara was very uneasy. His two brothers were the ones who would participate in the tournament on behalf of Suna. Naruto, I want to go see him. Jiraiya, of course, boy, but it would be better if you slept for a while beforehand. Naruto nodded without strength to argue. When he entered the guest room, he fell on the bed and immediately fell asleep. There he entered the hospital. They quickly guided him to one of the rooms. When he entered, he saw Tsunade monitoring Danza's vital signs, who was bedridden, motionless and with his eyes closed. Tsunade turned and advanced towards Naruto, wrapping him in a motherly hug. Tsunade, me. Child Naruto. Tsunade, what is happening to him? The Anbu did not reveal the storm of sadness and action that he was feeling inside Tsunade. We do not know for sure. One day he was fine, and the next Naruto separated and nodded, then sat in a chair next to the bed. Tsunade understood that the boy wanted to be alone with his grandfather. He left the room. Time skip. Naruto had been sitting in the same chair for 3 days. He barely got up to go to the bathroom, and all the time the Yamino shinobi had been in the room, he had not made any gesture of any kind, so Akuma was very surprised when the old man half opened his eyes. Dan's dod on Naruto. The boy took the old man's hand, who squeezed it lightly. Dan's looked at the boy. At that moment, they were not subordinate and superior, they were not powerful. Shinobi were not students and teachers, they were family, grandfather and grandson. I entrust the village to you. Naruto nodded slowly. The old man, seeing Naruto accept his last wish, smiled before exhaling his last breath. Naruto did not cry, but his heart ran wild with pain. His eyes burned, but he refused to shed tears. After a while he left there and teleported to the Sarutobi residence. As soon as Yuz sent his commander, Anbu understood that Dans had died. Naruto, without saying a word, touched him on the shoulder and returned to the hospital. They both looked for Dans. Tsunade, when they found her, they informed her of Dan's death. The blonde Senju did not take long to order the body to be removed and prepare it to incinerate it. When she turned to her sensei, and her godson noticed that there was something strange in the boy's eyes. Tsunade sensei. Look. Naruto Yuzen's eyes fixed on the eyes of the Yuzen boy. The Makuyo Sharingan. Time skip. A large crowd had gathered at the Konoha military cemetery, all there to say goodbye to a great man, Dan Shimura, 20th head of the Shimura clan, war hero with decorated and former director of the Anbu Special Forces program. Many did not really know him, but they did know what he had done for the village and the sacrifices. He faced a hidden leader, a shadow guardian, a shinobi, the grieving Sundaime Hokage. His friend and comrade officiated the burial. His body was cremated, and the urn that preserved his mortal remains was buried in the pantheon of heroes, in which only those who had served the blade with exceptional courage and virtue rested. Part of their ashes were separated, prepared to be thrown into the wind from the ground. Top of the monument to the Osas that had been his last wish to fly for the last time over the village he loved. The honor guard was made up of the captains of the various divisions. In front of them, Akuma, commander-in-chief of the Konoha Special Forces, Dan Shimura, was no longer there in body, and they were only paying tribute to his mortal remains, but all the shinobi who had the honor of serving at his side knew that Shimura had not abandoned them. He would continue with them, always feeding his will of fire and AC. Bathing her. Chapter 24. The beginning of the hunt. Naruto was training in one of the special Anbu training fields, under the watchful eye of Itachi, Shisu, and Kakashi. He had long surpassed them all in terms of power, but due to his lack of knowledge about Mankyo, they had asked for help. Naruto was dodging hundreds of thousands of kunai siemens, explosive papers and balls of shrapnel. Itachi, okay Naruto. That's enough. Naruto deactivated the Mai and left the training ground to talk to his teammates. Itachi knows Naruto. What differences have you noticed compared to the normal Sharingan? Naruto. He remained thoughtful for a few moments. Naruto's perception capacity increases. I can see spaces more deeply and anticipate movements better. At first it seemed that the field of vision was reduced. But that's not the case. It widens even more. Itachi smiled. His brother in arms never disappoints him. He was still the same prodigy as always. Shisui, it's true, the Makuyo is a powerful tool that greatly increases the perception you have of the battlefield. Additionally, with the Manji-Kuyo you are able to see the chak. And the quantity and density used in each technique is a deadly weapon Naruto, and then there are those special abilities of each one, such as Itachi's Amaterasu or Tukuamatsukami, without forgetting that very powerful spiritual warrior that Itachi likes to use when he is losing a practice match. The last part was said in a mocking tone, annoying the almost always imperturbable Uchiha whose eye was trembling. Shisui, haha, they caught you Itachi. Kakashi, let's get serious, this matter is of utmost importance. Despite the gift the attack was smiling under his mask. Shisui, Kakashi, you take away the fun of everything anyway, as I was saying it is a deadly weapon, but it carries with it a big flaw. Itachi took over. Itachi, its prolonged use leaves you blind. Naruto is surprised by what he knew. Both Shisui and Itachi used their mask a lot. Mineko, but I had never noticed even the slightest hint that they had blindness. Itachi, if you are wondering why Shuai and I have not gone blind, it is because of the next evolution of the Sharingan, the Wizard Eternal Sharingan Shizu, and the Eternal Minato is obtained when two users of the Minato they exchange their eyes. Naruto nodded, understanding the weight behind his brother's words. Itachi, I exchanged eyes with my father, Sasuke will do it with my mother when the time comes, and Shisui has not had the transplant yet. Naruto, why is that? Shisui, you see, I have saved the eyes of my father and my brother, both of whom awakened the Makuyo just before dying before each other, killing each other for power. You can call me superstitious, but I think those eyes are cursed. The rest remained silent. Everyone knew the tragic family story of Shisui, and they knew how much it was difficult for him to talk about it. Kakashi, well Naruto, as you see, you are going to train with us until you completely master your Manji-Kuyo. It is an intensive and secret training, so you will do it here at the base, and you will not leave while it lasts except on Saturdays. We leave those for you so that you can go see your kitten in Kumo. Naruto hit him with the Kaguya, which did not let him recover, and he launched himself towards Linbu, who could only defend himself when he was finally able to separate himself. Naruto had 2 broken ribs in his right collarbone like this. Like multiple cuts of varying severity all over the body, the Anbu was very surprised. That speed was inhuman, much higher than what Kazuma previously had, and his strength was also much greater, and his bones were gray and cold, very cold to the touch. Kazuma, do you like my modifications? They are a gift from Orochimaru, you know, from when he was in Akatsuki. It hurt a lot, but he was able to turn my bones into metal. Naruto took advantage of his opponent's distraction to silently place his own at his feet with a wind element and then teleported towards him with the element Rasengan. Thunder in hand, he tried to land a blow against the side of his side. Kazuma, you didn't believe it. At the last moment the Kaguya's ribs came out of his torso and skewered Naruto, 2 in the chest, another in the abdomen, and one last in the left shoulder. Kazuma, goodbye Naruto. The Kaguya gradually removed a bone from his arm, but when he was going to cut his jugular, Naruto with his last strength used the Irisin to disappear Kazuma. KSSS, that Jutsu Kon Gakurakuma appeared directly in Tsunade's office that without losing time operated on him urgently while the Anbu commander was struggling between life and death in another place. A powerful reddish chakra was extracted from 3 bodies. 2 of them were tuning of the blade and the last was a monk from the Temple of Fire. With this is enough, we can consider that we have already obtained the Kaiui chakra. Good job Kisame, go to the south lair. There you will be assigned a new objective. After that the ghostly figure of the leader, a tall man with ringed eyes, disappeared and shortly after the so-called Kisame left the place. An Anbu team arrived there and collected the unconscious bodies of the 2 Chunin and the dead body of the monk Kon Gakure. Naruto woke up several hours after dusk and dedicated himself to observing the moon through the window. In the last battle, they had defeated him absolutely, and knowing who it was that had done it, it destroyed him emotionally. He had already spoken to the Sundaime about it and they both concluded the same thing. Akatsuki was a danger not only for Konoha but for all the elemental nations. Anbu was immersed in his thoughts, but one predominated over all. He had to become stronger not only for himself and the village, but also for Yujito. However, someone interrupted his meditation. An enraged Ridit entered the Kushina room where you were when those bastards from Akatsuki kidnapped your brothers. You could have prevented it, but instead you had to go save the useless cashier. The woman lunged at the convalescent. But before a hand could reach, she grabbed him. He grabbed her firmly by the neck and slammed her against the wall, making her spit blood. It was Kakashi, who had been watching Naruto from the shadows. Minato, who was at the door, tried to pounce on his former student, but 2 katanas cut him off. Happens later, the Sundaime entered the room. Yusin, enough Kushina, behave. Minato, don't make me give the order, and Kami knows that you have given me more than enough reasons to do it. As soon as the old shinobi spoke, everyone returned to their initial positions, although the tension was evident. Well, to start, Naruto was on a mission to eliminate 2 Akatsuki, in which he ended up seriously injured. To be his mother, you didn't worry for a moment about him. Although seeing what his childhood was like, I shouldn't be surprised, the hatred and disgust were obvious. In the voice of the veteran shinobi Kushina, "You have no right to talk to me like that," and Naruto decided to abandon his brothers for the cashier. Naruto, fed up with the woman, gave vent to all the rage. Frustration and fury that Naruto contained. "Shut up, Gaara is more my brother than those useless things that you have as children, and don't you dare say that you are my mother or that they are my family. Why isn't it like that?" Kushina tried to speak, but the Anbu didn't allow it. "Naruto also behaved for once like a kunoichi of the village, the Sekage, and our alliance with the sand is more important than two chunin who do not deserve their rank. To make matters worse, I have already had enough." Kushina, from this moment you are banished from the Uzumaki clan, and I as its leader named Kakashi and Renara as members honorifics of the same, will be able to carry the surname of the clan and give in to its resources and jutsus. The woman, stunned by the recent events, could not answer. Just at that moment, an Anbu with a dragon mask appeared. It was Sasuke Uchiha Dorgan Sundai-sama Akuma-sama. "We have found the missing Namikaze brothers and the monk Sora. The monk has died, but the Namikaze are still alive." Kushina and Minato, it didn't take a moment for them to rush out of the room to go see their children. Those who were still in the room remained silent until Naruto spoke. "Naruto, I need to get stronger. According to Jiraiya's latest report, Akatsuki no, it will not move again for 3 years. Sundai-sama, I request permission to begin a training trip of indefinite duration." Yusin meditated for a few moments before giving his approval. "Yusin, granted, but you must be prepared to return the moment we call you through the Gisen." "Kakashi, and where are you going?" "Naruto Akumo, I also read the newbies, and you can also come with a raisin. It doesn't cost me anything to take you and bring you all daily." And the room approved this idea. It was a fantastic opportunity not only to learn new jutsus, but also to further strengthen the prevailing alliance with the village of the country of lightning. Naruto smiled. What he had not told anyone was that part of the reason why he had selected Kumo was a certain blonde with Ank's eyes. "Almost fine. I'm satisfied. My shift is over. I'm going home. Remember to arrive early today. Rim is going to make his special dessert." And the silver-haired man left in a Shunin. Akuma, well, this is it now. Only Itachi Sasuke remains, and Sandai-sama using listen appeared at his brother's door and knocked. His brother opened it with a smile. "Itachi, hello." "Naruto, come in." Naruto entered the house and took off his mask, and after Itachi prepared tea, they sat in the small garden of the house. "Itachi, you know that I love that you come to visit me, but from your face I deduce that you have to tell me something." Naruto nodded and took a sip before speaking. "Naruto, Itachi, I have decided that for now you will not come to Kumo with me." Itachi stared at him with absolute seriousness. "Naruto, you are going to get married, and that also requires planning. I need some strong Anbus here so as not to unprotect the village." "Itachi, you know very well that those are just excuses." Naruto the Uzumaki sighed. Of course Itachi wouldn't swallow that nonsense. "Naruto, okay, I'll be honest, I want that you stay to receive treatment for your illness." Itachi widened his eyes in absolute surprise. He did not expect Naruto to know that. "Naruto, although your illness is supposedly terminal, Tsunade has developed a treatment. If everything goes well in a year you will be able to return to active duty, and you will be recovered to 100%. Itachi nodded happily. He did not expect such good news. "Naruto, well, let's get to work. You already know who is going to be the godfather." And both non-blood brothers stayed talking calmly, although Naruto inside himself noticed a burning of the result of his last battle time. Skip 2 hours later. Naruto with his mask on walked through the Uchiha neighborhood, receiving respectful greetings, only this time it was not like the villagers, but Naruto returned them with sincerity since that clan had protected him more than once from the mobs of villagers, reaching the point that Fugaku secretly gave him an escort and behind the Yondaime's back. Naruto arrived at a block of rental apartments reserved for the young Chunin and Jounin of the clan when he knocked on the door of one of the apartments. The owner of it opened it, and when he saw who it was, he knelt down. "Sasuke Kumasama. It's an honor, please come in." Uchiha's apartment was elegant and sober. After all, like Anbu, he didn't need much more than a place to rest. "Sasuke wants some Akuma tea." "Sama." Naruto, "No thank you very much Sasuke, I just had one with your brother, and please call me Naruto." "Sasuke, okay." "Naruto Sama." "Naruto, without the Sama honorifics have their place of use, but your own house is not. You are the host, besides I have bothered you in your day off." Sasuke smiled and excused him quickly. "Sasuke, it's not a bother by the way. Naruto brought you here. I wanted to propose that you accompany me to Kuma to train." "Don't worry, you can come back whenever you want. I have prepared a lysine seal, especially for this." "Sasuke, I accept the Uchiha." He spoke very quickly. Anxious Naruto couldn't help but smile and proceeded to explain what his training trip would be like. Time jump. After spending almost an hour talking to Sasuke, Naruto left for the Anbu headquarters using the Irisin and burst into the Sundaime's office with impetus. "You and Naruto, what brings you here?" "Naruto Sandai-mima, be honest with me. You are a tiger on an infiltration mission." And Akatsuki Yuin looked at the boy, who remained imperturbable, although the slight tension in his shoulders told him that the boy had not yet assimilated the betrayal of his Mentor how he wished he could tell him that Tiger was still loyal to the Leaf, but that was a lie that his best man did not deserve Yusin no Naruto, I'm afraid nothing is fake, I'm sorry Naruto I'm not sorry Sundai-sama, it was just to make sure I came to it to inform him that tomorrow I will take Ne Shikamaru to the Rancor Battalion then Sasuke and I will march to Kumo both the Sekage and the Raikage are already informed Yusin only nodded it seemed that Naruto was going to continue with his report, but the Anbu tattoo shown, indicating that the Yondaime he claimed with a sigh, the Uzumaki left using the irisin when he appeared in the Hokage's office, he saw that he was looking at him, sadly surprised Naruto noticed that they were completely alone, there were not even the Yondaime's personal Anbu Naruto spoke under his Akuma mask, why does he need me? Yondaime Minato looked at him with even more sadness, but he knew that what he had to tell him was the right thing, his decision was the right one, no matter how much pain you caused him Minato Akuma no Naruto, please remove your mask, the Anbu without really knowing why he did what he did. The older blonde had asked, exposing his weathered face Minato he looked at him in detail, recording in his memory the face of the one who in the past was his son Minato, yes, the mistakes I have made with you are countless and unforgivable, I locked you up without hesitation even a moment later. He filters to the people your position as Jinchuriki of the soul of the Kiri, when I discovered that you were an Anbu I tried to strip you of your rank, and finally I have tried in every possible way to make you return to a family that was never yours, that is why I ask your forgiveness, and I give you my word that I will leave you in peace just as you deserve. Just as I should have done so long ago, it has cost me so much time, but I have understood, I have nothing to demand from you, much less I have the right to consider myself your father, really, nor I don't even know how you can still consider me a comrade from the same village. The point I wanted to get to is that I am very sorry for all the pain I caused you at the time, and the inconvenience that I and my family have been to you, since we found out who you were, but this is all over, I have spoken with Kushina, and we have both accepted the situation. Naruto remained unperturbed, but inside he was very surprised at all the possible situations for which he could have been taken away by the Yondaime. This was the most unlikely of all, Naruto. Thank you. It will be a relief not to have to put up with them if and that's all I leave after receiving a nod from Lage. The Anbu left the place time skip the next day at the gates of Konoha, there was a group of Anbu with a Kunoichi quite nervous about to leave. The Kuma without wasting any more time, grabbed the three who had one as their destination, and in a flash she appeared in the Kaj office where Temur and Nosa Baku, commander of the Rancor Battalion, Gaara, were also waiting for your arrival, Temari here present. She will be your guide and companion in command of the Rancor Battalion, I hope your stay here is pleasant and productive Temari please accompany them to their residence. The two Anbu just nodded and followed the beautiful woman of the sand, while Tenten followed them somewhat hesitantly when they all left. They left the room, Akuma took off his mask, and I smile at his old friend Naruto Gaara, I see that you are already recovered Gaara, don't treat me like a weakling I'm the Kaj, despite his harsh words, the light in the eyes of the Suna leader indicated that he was just joking Naruto well Gaara, I would love to be able to stay, but I still have a trip to make. Gaara tells me that someone is afraid that his girlfriend will beat him up if he is late. Naruto just smiled before disappearing in a flash at the gates of Konoha. Sasuke was waiting for his superior who appeared next to him in an imperceptible way for a normal shinobi, but Sasuke was a highly trained Anbu, so he noticed the slight pulse of chakra from the mark on his arm, so he knew that Akuma was already there without saying a word the Anbu commander grabbed him by the shoulder, and in an instant they were in the Raikage's office. As soon as they arrived, a blonde Kunoichi with great attributes pounced on them with a katana wrapped in powerful raiten, but Sasuke, with a slight swing of his suiten, blocked the blow. The Raikage intervened before the gods could escaped from his control Samui, what was that for Akuma calm down Raikage-sama suck Kunoichi, just wanted to test us he wasn't at his maximum speed, and the Raiten chakra of his sword was not lethal Samui, that was the Kunoichi's name she was surprised, not only had they blocked her with great ease, but the one who seemed to be the commander, had read his intentions perfectly. He expected no less from you. Akuma smiled and, using hand signals, told Sasuke that he could remove his mask. This was possible because in the near future, the country of lightning and the country of fire would be united since the heir of the country of fire had married the only daughter of the daimyo of the country of lightning. So the unification of both countries could be glimpsed in the very near future due to this, and to promote cooperation until total unity arrived, the Hokage and the Raikage had been sharing high-caliber military information between them, the names and appearance of their special forces, who had even carried out missions in Samui collaboration. Although unperturbed by outside she was amazed at the beautiful appearance of the one who had stopped her blow and quickly recognized him as Sasuke. Uchiha with a slight shake of her head came out of her thoughts and paid attention to the conversation without realizing that the Uchiha was looking at her out of the corner of his eye with admiration. In Konoha there were not many strong and beautiful kunoichi. Just thinking about the pathetic Sakura made him sick. Well, Naruto and Sasuke did not say the last, looking at the young Uchiha, who nodded. Well, your training will be in the valley of, but before it could finish, a beautiful blonde with onyx eyes, who simply stood looking at the Raikage, who shivered slightly. Well, we can talk about it tomorrow, what do you think? Naruto gave one of his few smiles and nodded. Well, Samui shows Sasuke the village, and his accommodation. Samaya nodded and indicated to him Uchiha to follow her, something Yujito did with pleasure. Well, Raj-sama, we are leaving too, and before she finished speaking, Naruto picked her up bridal style and left there imperceptibly. The Raikage just smiled, remembering his youth, while in Konoha Hing shouted that the rays of youth were thundering with fury, which led him to receive some strange looks from his companions. Naruto and Yujito appeared in their favorite place in Kumo, an esplanade from which the entire village could be seen. Yujito hit his shoulder with some anger, but this one left when she received a passionate kiss from her boyfriend. Naruto, I have kicked you out as a kitten. Yujito, it has only been 2 weeks since you last visited me. Naruto, for me, it has been a long time. Yujito smiled. I really enjoyed the few moments in which her boyfriend let go of his worries and was affectionate and attentive. The blonde kunoichi only gave him another kiss, and they stayed for a long time without speaking, hugging, simply enjoying their time together. The passage of time, the goodbye of the Sannin in the country of lightning in the village of Kumagakure had already fallen, and the most powerful military village in the world next to Konoha was enjoying the peace of the night's rest. Everyone was sleeping, except for the night protection teams and the Anbu patrols, although to say that only those few ninjas who watched over the rest and safety of their village were awake, it was somewhat inaccurate. In a house in the upper part of the village, on a balcony, there was a tall man with long hair in multiple colors. His naked torso revealed a well-worked physique, but not it was the physique of a boastful civilian, not those smooth muscles, and the horrendous scars he bore revealed that this man was a shinobi. The said shinobi held a sheet of paper between his fingers and looked at the horizon with an imperturbable gesture. The shinobi's name was Uzumaki Senjuchi Naruto. Meadow and feared in the ninja world by his code name Anbu Akuma, the Kono shinobi had just received the monthly report from the Rancor Battalion, a routine report and without surprises, which was good. Kami knew that he had had enough with the kidnapping of Gaara. Shortly after who had arrived in Kumo for training, the Kazekage had been kidnapped again. A team sent by Akatsuki, composed of Kazuma Kaguya Sasori of the Red Sand and Deidara the Bomber, had attacked Suna, facing the Kazekage in a combat of colossal magnitudes. The Rancor Battalion, the Special Forces, Su and Konoha's joint forces were unable to assist Gaara as they were on a spy mission to Takigakure village, who had been acting suspiciously and which was believed to be in negotiations with Akatsuki to hand over the Nanabi's Jinchuriki. Gaara, remembering the destruction caused as a result of his last confrontation with Akatsuki, he took the fight to the desert, where he also had the tactical advantage of the abundance of sand. The Sekage had fought as the leader of one of the greatest powers in the world. He had managed to finish off Sasori and almost managed to take out as well the Deidara, who came out of the battle with an amputated arm and a complete leg crushed, but Kazuma Kaguya, he was one of the few shinobi in the world capable of being considered an SS rank, being in some bingo books as SSS rank after his battle with Akuma, and he was not going to let the mission fail. Kaguya used one of her most powerful techniques, creating the Forest of Death, an impressive jutsu that combined her bloodline with Fin jutsu to create an inferno of sharp fragments and bone stakes that appeared everywhere above and below. From left to right, the Kazekage was able to withstand several minutes of harassment and even managed to break part of the Finhatsu matrix. But he was finally defeated when the Rancor Battalion returned urgently from their mission and they contacted Akuma. It was already late on. Via had been extracted and the Sekage had died, but an elderly counselor and puppeteer of the village, feared in the ninja world for her poisons and puppet techniques, Cho used a kinjutsu of her creation to transfer her own life energy to Gaara, returning the Hahe to the world of the living thanks to Cho's sacrifice. When Akuma was finally informed, he met with the Kazekage and they talked at length about what strategy to follow. In the end, they decided that they had to protect at all costs the 3 remaining bigs: Utakata Jinchuriki of the Rakubi, Risi Jinchuriki of the Yamban, Jinchuriki of the Gambi, had been captured. The loss of Ichibi due to the DB chakra that they had extracted from the Namikaze twins Akatsuki only had to get the Nanabi Nibikai. Gaara and Naruto, they took the protection of the remaining Jinchuriki as something personal, but above all DF the Nanabi's Jinchuriki was the one with the lowest level as a shinobi, because she had been isolated in Takigakure by limited Illinois for fear of the big that she had sealed inside her. Furthermore, the reports that her own village was thinking of handing her over were not at all encouraging. After agreeing to with Gaara, who would maintain the validity over Taki, Naruto returned to his training in Kumo. He had perfected his good element thanks to the invaluable help of Taya, but the increase in power had come with a great drawback: the pressure exerted by the prolonged use of the sand and no parrot, and the improved element was so beastly that he could barely stand a few minutes of its use. Sukinjutsu had changed radically, now he no longer used the Uzumaki style, but had relied on it to create 7 different styles, each with its specific characteristics. This was what I was thinking. Not only for him that he could use any of those forms, but also for them to be taught to his Anbu, depending on which one they felt most similar to. The first form, the Shicho, was based primarily on the Ken Samurai. It was a simple and versatile form designed for those without previous experience in Kenjutsu. The second form, the Makashi, was intended for direct confrontation with another Kenjutsu user. It was intended to be used without the support of jutsus beyond, applying elemental chakra to the blade. The third form, the Suresu, was a defensive style based on quick counterattacks. It was used mainly by Anbu who fulfilled the support function in their teams. The fourth form, a Teru, was an aggressive and fast style that was very useful for one-on-one confrontation, but ineffective against multiple opponents or in prolonged combat due to the physical load that this style entailed. Had been created expressly for silent assassination teams that needed a fast and aggressive style in order to quickly kill the target and escape before they were detected. The fifth form, the Jimo, combined the best of Suresu and Suresu. Makashi had a powerful defense, but he didn't give up. He took care of the attack in a very balanced way. Kakashi attack was one of the main defenders of the style, since his own father the White Fang had used something similar. But he had managed to take it even further by adding acrobatics and unpredictable movements that made it especially difficult to counter. The sixth form, the Naiman, was the most basic and undemanding. It was designed to be taught to shinobi from the Chunin level, regardless of whether they wanted to enter Anbu or not. Lastly, the seventh form, the Baaz, was the personal style of Akuma, aggressive, strong and emotional. It took a lot of rage and fury to use it. Akuma himself as a Jinchuriki was more prone to falling into hatred and anger. His own past and the influence of the Vig within him made this style dangerous, very dangerous, which is why it had been created. Swearing to himself that he would only use it as a last resort, Akuma stretched to relax his somewhat tense muscles. At least the situation in Konoha is good, he thought to himself in Konoha. Usun had implemented a brutal training system and had returned to the glory of his time as Hokage, raising the level of his shinobi again, plus Minato had returned to training and had recovered his old level, plus Minato had ruled that anyone who did not meet the levels of Usun could not be members of Konoha's shinobi forces. Sakura Runo had been expelled from the active ninja program and was now training as a ninja doctor at the Leaf Hospital, but she would never again be on the front lines. That hard blow of reality had turned the girl into someone more competent and she had matured, and although she was still in love with Sasuke, Uchiha was no longer so obsessed with him. Yada Iga had also been converted as a medical ninja, since due to the fight she had with her cousin Nei in the Chun exams, her body could not bear the daily life of an active ninja, although she was still very proud of having been stripped of her title as heir by not being able to participate in missions or combat, and having found a great passion in the field of medicine and the creation of poisons, she had also lost her arrogance. Minato he had broken his agreement with the Iga clan, and after learning of Mito and Asina's incestuous relationship, he had sent them both to the Anbu rehabilitation program that was responsible for treating all types of psychological disorders and problems derived from having served in the most demanding group. Dark and brutal blade. After being subjected to that program, they had abandoned the relationship they had and had become quite competent tuning. Although somewhat below the average level that Yu had established, this was mainly due to their arrogance that had decreased, but they were still. She kept Kushina after being expelled from the Uzumaki clan. She had returned to training, and although she no longer had the same level with her chains that she had when she was the leader of the clan, she could say that she was a rank kunoichi in her own right. Jiraiya and Tsunade continued as always, although the white-haired man had abandoned his investigations and had focused completely on his network of spies. He had realized that one of the main things that hurt him as a ninja in person was that he was a pervert, so he had decided to keep her under tight control. For of course, that didn't mean that he still had fantasies and had his sense of humor. Tsunade, for her part, had once again reached her Sannin level, in addition to restoring the status of the Senju clan and taking charge of all the matters that she had left abandoned for decades, and since then. Jiraiya changed, she stayed with her old teammate every time he was in the village, but they were just friends, and the Seining of the Toads had given her his heart, but she had not, and he accepted it, even though he did not receive anything in return. However, he would not worry about something so small, he would take care of her and protect her, praying for her love and praying and seeking her happiness. Tsunade herself. He did not know very well what to think about his former partner. After the passage of years, he had realized that if someone was always, Jiraiya was there for her, but she had lost everyone she had loved one after another. That is why she refused to love, because if she gave her heart to Jiraiya and he died, she would not be able to bear it, and she was not worthy of him. Jiraiya deserved someone better than her. Naruto continued thinking about his godparents until Warm arms wrapped around him. Yujito Naru, what's happening? Naruto turned and kissed the woman who had become the light of his life, affectionately on the forehead. Naruto, nothing, kitten, was just thinking, and everything what has happened these years. Yujito smiled sweetly as she pulled him into the room. Yujito, and what have you concluded? Naruto, that you are the best thing that has happened to me. Afterwards they lay down together on the bed, and Yujito rested her head on his broken torso and hugged him. Like this together they fell asleep with Hakure Noto that same day. Mid-afternoon, lockage office. Minato, are you sure about this? Sensei Jiraiya, yes Minato, if my reports are correct the leader of Akatsuki is located in a meg cure. Minato, but you don't have to go to check it. It's very dangerous. Haha, I appreciate your concern, but your old sensei is still a tough nut to crack, and if I die, it will be a worthy ending to the story of Jur the Gallant. Despite the scandalous and jovial laughter of the Sannin, Minato realized that it was his sensei's way of saying goodbye. Jiraiya, well Minato, we'll see you. Minato sensei. Jiraiya stopped short and turned to see him. Minato stood up and grabbed his wrist, leaving a seal. Minato, this seal is my greatest work. With it, I can feel your chakra levels, plus it has a dying formula no matter what happens, and if the leader of Akatsuki is powerful he will not die alone. Jiraiya looked at the student who he had come to see as his own son. The blue and frank gaze of the blonde-haired man demonstrated an unbreakable will. Minato could not ask for a better ending. A last battle to redeem my sins towards the village and my son with my teacher, not with you. Tausen Jirai could no longer articulate any words because to the emotion there was the shinobi whom he trained, that person with a pure heart, unbreakable will, courage and honor. Minato had committed many sins, among them, and the one who reproached himself the most for having abandoned his son Naruto, but he was going to try to redeem himself, and if not he would die. As the shinobi that was once Jiraiya nodded and went out the window, Minato saw the figure of his sense, and getting lost in the horizon time jump. Jiraiya finally reached his destination, the Leaf Hospital. He entered and climbed several floors until he stood in front of an office. When he knocked on the door, he opened his platonic love. Tsunade. Jiraiya, what are you doing here? The saying of the Toad's Eye smiled weakly. Jirai, Tsunade, would you join me for a drink for old times' sake? Tsunade, noticing that whatever it was something important, he nodded, and after leaving his robe hanging on a rack, he followed his former teammate on the way to a nearby bar, where they sat down and ordered dinner and a bottle of serve. 3 diners left the establishment and sat on a bench admiring the sunset during dinner. Jiraiya, now I had told him I would go after the Akatsuki leader Tsunade from Akatsuki. This guy is capable of controlling such powerful shinobi. Who knows how strong he will be, and you want to get in there directly. Tsunade was fighting to hold back her tears and appear serious and stoic, but she was having a hard time. The unimaginable, only the years of tight control over her emotions and her shinobi training allowed her to maintain a normal looking face. Jirai, now well, I'll get going. Tsunade returns alive. Jirai, who had already gotten up, looked at her intrigued. Tsunade, if I lost you, me too. Jiraiya put on the happiest and most joking voice he could, but it was clear that it was forced. Jiraiya, would you cry for me? What an honor, but not as much as when Dan died, right? Tsunade, idiot, could barely hold back his tears. Jiraiya, well, then let's make a bet that I will die. Tsunade turned around with teary eyes and very surprised. Jiraiya, with your luck, he will surely lose. And if he returns? Tsunade looked at him, waiting for the words that she herself did not dare to say, but Jiraiya once again let out a forced laugh. Jiraiya was just joking. Tsunade shrank again. Holding back tears. Jiraiya, being rejected makes a man stronger, and if he is unable to laugh about it, he will not be able to fulfill his obligations as a man. At least joke about it. Tsunade, so the obligation of a man is to be strong. Jirai, so to speak further, a man, he didn't give up on pursuing something like happiness. Tsunade also forced a jovial tone. Tsunade, stop trying to sound dignified. If there were no women, there would be no one to reject you. Jiraiya smiled. Jiraiya. Very true. They both remained silent for a few moments. Tsunade, and something is happening. Use your toads. And let me know, I will go there right away. Jiraiya, it is not necessary, you have to stay in the village. We both know that if I fail a war will break out and Konoha will need the last of the Sannin. Plus you have to take care of Naruto, you have to take care of him so he is no longer a child, and that we were never there during his childhood or when he suffered, but you are the closest thing he has today. Family, if I lost you I don't think I would be able to bear it. Instead I will. I'm just an old pervert. Another silence settled between them. Jiraiya picked up his scroll and he placed it in the lower part of his back. Jiraiya, well, I'll leave now. Tsunade, seeing that, grabbed one of the folds of his tunic and squeezed it tightly while a silent tear slid down his cheek. Jiraiya, see you. Tsunade saw how the Sannin of the toads, he started walking and raised his fist, indicating with his thumb that everything would be fine. When his figure was lost in the horizon, he couldn't take it anymore and began to cry like he hadn't cried since he was a child. Chapter 28, The Pieces. On the board in the Valley of the Clouds, located in the territory controlled by the powerful shinobi village of Kumagakura Sato, a fierce battle was fought. The crackling of fire and the rays of lightning flooded the environment with their sound and smell in a spectacular dance of brightness and explosions. At the bottom of the valley were those responsible for the beautiful dance. Destructive that could be observed from above, come on, that didn't even tickle me. The opponent of the man who had shouted that provocation stood up from the ground, his body barely covered by a tattered black t-shirt despite his condition. The young man smiled and with the back of his hand he removed the blood that was dripping from his lips, then he shot at a devilish speed towards his opponent, who, however, blocked the young man's blow and gave him a strong kick that made him retreat. Well boy, that's enough for today. The young man nodded. And he dropped to the ground and closed his eyes exhausted until the shadow of the one who until just a few moments had been his opponent made him open them again. Sasuke Uchiha from the ground contemplated the formidable figure of the Raikage who was in front of him with a great smile. You have improved a lot, Uchiha. But you tend to go too far forward despite being able to use jutsus of enormous power. You must not forget that the greatest weapon of a shinobi, even more so of an Anbu, is deception. A kunai can kill even a Kage if you know how. Use it, the young Uchiha nodded at the wise words of his teacher who helped him sit up. The older man seemed to want to say something else, but a roar at the other end of the valley made them both look in that direction. There in the dust a figure could be glimpsed. Covered in armor with her hair dancing free in the wind, said figure was surrounded by a series of black and gold rays. Moments later, she disappeared and another deafening roar echoed through the valley. Naruto Uzumaki, the most lethal shinobi of the leaf, had run into a wall. An outside observer would think that this man was the absolute beneficiary of shinobi genetics, son of an Uzumaki Jinchuriki of the Kibi, and descendant of the Uchiha and Senju clans. He had overwhelming power. However, this power was not a matter of his distinguished ancestry, or the tenet of it could be said that his genetic inheritance limited him, since he could never obtain 100% of the power of the Sharingan or the Uzumaki chains. Furthermore, having such overwhelming power also meant that he could not use it all. At the same time, since if not his body would collapse, and no one knew that better than the Anbu commander of Konoha, the pressure exerted by his thunder element armor was already brutal, but if he tried to combine it with the adamantine chains, he could barely stand or speak on top of focusing and controlling the chakra necessary to use level 5 of lysine without disintegrating in the process. And that was precisely what he was trying to control, but so far he had not made any progress. Furious and frustrated, he stood up again, but a hand on his shoulder stopped his intention to try again. It was because he had come there. Okay Naruto, that's enough for today. The shinobi of the country of fire sighed and nodded. The rest was important. Also in a couple of days, the wedding of the country's heir would be celebrated Del Rayo, with the heir to the country of fire and wind, so he must have been in perfect condition, since the chances of an attack occurring were very high. Furthermore, if he arrived destroyed, Yujito was going to kill him, and he did not want to be devoured by a huge cat of blue fire. Not again, at least like this. The Anbu resigned himself to not reaching his established objective for the day, and without saying a word he approached the other two shinobi present. He put a hand on their shoulder and using the raisen he took him to the top of the Raikage's tower after leaving his subordinate and the Raikage. Naruto teleported to the top of Kumagakure with a sigh. He sat down and admired the visitors before him. Kumagakure was made up of enormous buildings excavated on the sides of an impressive valley, the altitude of the village, towards which the news will touch the top of the buildings and the mountains. It is really beautiful. He thought perhaps it was not as beautiful a view as the one obtained from the top of the monument to the Kage of Konoha, but of course it was much more impressive when he thought of the monumental wall, with the faces of the leaders of the leaf. He immediately remembered his friends and comrades. Itachi Chiya, commander of the assassination division of Anbu Shinnoya, complaining of a serious illness from the which was still in reserve, since the treatment was still he had not concluded. His brother Sasuke had accompanied him to Kumo and was proving to be a great shinobi. Shiuchi, a distant cousin of the previous two, feared throughout the world as Shunshin no Sisui, commander of the Hu Infiltration Division, who was at that moment in Sunagakure together with the Rancor Battalion, with the mission of monitoring the Jinchuriki of Nanabe Kakashi, second in command of Anbu, who was in Konoha to preserve the security of the village, together with a military police commanded by Fugaku Chiya. All of them were part of his small group. Trusted group brothers in everything but blood. Finally thought of his godparents, Tsunade Senju, his cousin granddaughter of Hashirama, as he was Tobirama, the best doctor in the world, and Jiraiya, teacher of his biological father, probably the most lethal Sannin for his mastery over Senjutsu, spymaster and legendary pervert, just as he knew where all his friends and teachers were, just as his cousin didn't know where his godfather was, and it wasn't for lack of intention, but if the Sannin didn't want him to find him there was no way he could do it. He shook his head. That he didn't have to worry about the pervert. He was one of the most dangerous men in the world. He would be safe, or so he hoped. To Kigakure, at the same time that Naruto was observing the vastness of the clouds in the vicinity of Taki, there was one of the people he thought about, Shisu and Uchiha, who, together with Shikamaru Nara and Neher Yuga, Observed without being noticed the meeting that Taki's council was having at that moment about what to do with his Jinchuriki F advisor. I say that we hand her over to Akatsuki. We all know what Kakuzu is capable of, and this time he is not alone. The murmurs of acceptance from the rest of the council did not wait, while Shibuki, leader of the village, remained undaunted. Shibuki, I am not going to allow it. Besides the fact that we would be betraying one of ours to hand over to F is to arm the enemy. The room remained in silence. However, the same counselor who had spoken before intervened again. Counselor, you cannot do anything, Shibuki. If the rest of the council agrees, Bito has power over your actions and decisions. The young leader of the waterfall clenched his fists in anger, knowing that it was true. Counselor, it has been decided. Tomorrow we will contact Kakuzu and hand him over to F. Little by little, and among murmurs, the room was empty. Only Shibuki stayed in the same place. Shibuki, I couldn't do anything. Now everything is in our hands. Those words, apparently addressed to the void, arrived with clarity to their recipients in silence. The Konoha Anbus vanished in a Shunshin, already in a safe position. Shisu and Shikamaru defined the plan they would use to get the Jinchuriki out of the village. On the other hand, Niji would keep an eye on the cabin where she lived to avoid surprises. Unpleasant it was during this guard that Nei saw the counselor enter the cabin in favor of giving F to the cabin in his hands, a paper with a seal drawn on it. Niji followed the man in silence to the room where he slept. The man stopped and put the paper on his back of the girl. When she did it, it shown was a chakra blocking seal advisor. Damn demon, tomorrow, you won't be a problem anymore, but first you will do something useful for once. Nei heard the man's whisper without fully understanding his intentions, but when he saw that she put her hand to her crotch, she understood the intentions of the perfidious man. He wanted to rape her. She didn't doubt that maybe he would put the mission at risk, but she wasn't going to allow it before the counselor could even realize his member was dead in the air, the choking sound he made when he died. She woke up the girl who, scared, saw the Linbu that was holding the kunai that had cut the counselor's neck. In terror, she saw that he couldn't move. However, the Anbu removed the seal and gave him his space to recover from the scare. Niji, calm down, I'm an Anbu. From Konoha I have been sent by the Hokage and the Keisuke to guarantee your safety. Sorry for the scare and the disaster. The girl nodded, assimilating what I had said to her. There was no trace of the bubbly personality that normally characterized her. Although considering the circumstances it was not strange. Niji too, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you're not safe here. Shibuki, he can't protect you anymore. He asked us to take you to Suna. The Kazekage is waiting for us a few kilometers from here. We'd better hurry up. Understanding the seriousness of the situation, and picked up his few things. Belongings were abandoned next to the Anbu, the house that he hated for having been his prison for years. In just an instant, they reached Shisu and Shikamaru's position. Upon seeing Nei accompanied by F, they understood that the situation had changed, and after making sure that they left no trace after his presence, they left. The trip was tense but without incident. 2 hours later, they met Keisuke and the rest of the Ranker battalion and left for Suna. F could not help but stay going in amazement. Everything was the second time that she had left her town, and the vastness of the world amazed her. The next morning they arrived at Suna, where they gave her her own apartment next to the one Gaara owned. A Megakure found her daughter Jiraiya was in a small bar in a Megakure, listening discreetly to the conversations of those present, but seeing that they did not contain information related to the purpose of his visit, he left the path. He walked in an apparently erratic direction for a while, until he suddenly disappeared. Jiraiya, a lot of time has passed. Conan, the aforementioned Conan who had been following a shinobi, was a blue-haired woman of great beauty. She shuddered when she noticed the cold steel of the kunai against her neck. Then she noticed a prick on her back. It was Jiraiya, who upon seeing the tunic with red noops of the one who was his student, put a new seal on him that he had developed. He felt enormous sadness when he did so, but it was necessary. Then he let Jiraiya go and tell your leader. Tell him to come and confront me and no games. I have put a special seal on you. Whenever I want, I can. Kill yourself and don't even think about taking it off. If an external chakra tries to remove it, you die. Conan held back a shudder, then he sprouted his paper wings and left the place to warn pain. While Jiraiya prepared for the eventual battle, he removed his usual outfit and replaced it with his armor from the Second Great War and returned the summoning contract to the Monyoku with a resigned sigh. He made his back creak. I don't know why you support Akatsuki, Conan, nor and I don't know who the leader is either, but it doesn't matter, he thought with his eyes closed. Never I liked it, but you are a threat that cannot be ignored, which is why he opened his eyes that showed determination and absolute fierceness. I will kill you or die trying.